All right. I am joined by Julianna Forlano I joined her earlier today, but talking to Julianna for the second time today, since she is, among other things, a host at ACT TV. So you can go see us there from earlier today. Where should they go to see that?
Oh, yeah. Go to the YouTube, ACT TV's YouTube. It's act.tv on YouTube. And we ran down the headlines. It was awesome.
Yes. No, it was a lot. It was a lot of fun. It was a really good conversation. Talked about Striketober. Talked about, Chappelle a little bit.
We could have done that we scratched the surface, but a good scratching it was.
Yes, it was a good scratching. Talked about worker co-ops. There's a lot of good stuff there. You should check that out. But despite having had this very good experience this afternoon, I'm going to do something really mean to Julianna right now, which is make her watch an hour of this Charlie Kirk debate.
No, I didn't know we were doing that. You didn't tell me that's what. This is terrible. Yeah, no.
Yeah. So this was actually they record these a little in advance, so they can, to be fair, I think that the only allegation of any sort of editing here was at the very end. We'll talk about it when we get to it, and it's ambiguous because whether it's supposed to be over at that point or not is a little unclear. But
okay.
So I think that, but they do spend, they do have a little lag time between recording these and airing them. So they like cut it up with the camera angles and all that stuff. So. This one just recently came out, like last week before. Anyway, something like that. One of those weeks in the last couple weeks. But this was recorded before my Charlie Kirk debate. It was like the previous episode of his show, Debate Night with Charlie Kirk. And when I was in Phoenix for mine, they were kind of referring to this like because whatever the debate that I had, Charlie, was pretty chill since I think as a matter of personal style, like I just kind of want to
I cannot wait to see you do that. I can't wait to see it. I'm psyched.
Good.
Especially having watched some of this thing we're just about to rewatch together, which will be fun. Yeah, I was the interaction of both people was tough to watch.
Yeah, so they were kind of talking about how, the one before was really different. That was, and I'm going to be seeing some of this fresh, but I have seen clips. I have some idea.
It's important. I know you said you can watch the whole thing, but going into it fresh is also. So I watched a few parts just to make sure I was not shocked. You didn't want unfettered Julianna. You want partially fettered and planned Julianna.
Yeah, fair enough. I actually just got I actually just got the video of mine, but we will air that on Monday. But to lead up to it, we are watching the previous episode of Debate Night with Charlie Kirk, which is with Ben Gleib, who is a comedian, among other things, and they are arguing about abortion rights. Like I said, it's a very different.
Why was it? Sorry. Why?
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah,
why
please.
Was it this guy and abortion rights? Like, does Ben? I don't know Ben, but I respect anyone who's a comedian. I do. I'm like, that's hard and good for you.
I assume that it's not just random that Ben must have said, at the very said something or done something or whatever that made them think of him as somebody to argue with about this topic. But yes, this is the one. So anybody who doesn't know what Darius is talking about in the chat, but this is the one with the dolphin fetus. Like, I know that moment from this.
I did not get to that one.
Okay,
that will be awesome.
We will let it be a little surprise, but it's like I said. I mean, this I know was much more much less chill because
it was stressful from the beginning. It was tough. Even their hellos were, you'll see, whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't even get, I was like, oh, and that, the one guy's like trying to espouse the positions that I also espouse, but
yeah. I mean, I will say, right, that any time I do something like this, the way, I mean, as much as I'm not above, like, whatever, making fun of Steven Crowder for, the stuff we were making fun of him before, whatever, like, really, like, I see the point of something like this in, I think, a pretty different way. I think this is going to be stressful in some ways, entertaining in some ways, but the way I see the point is that the main reason to do stuff like this is that it's your only chance to talk to somebody else's audience. And so, who you're really aiming at is anybody who's like maybe a little sympathetic to them, but they're not like married to the position, or else they're like maybe somebody, you're not going to reach the hardcore fans, but like, but you maybe even somebody who used to be, who for whatever reason, it is a time in their life when they're open to hearing something different. So I'm more interested in like trying to like reach out to those people about why the person being argued with is wrong, right? Like like why, what they're saying doesn't make sense, why something else is true, and any kind of like the question of like, not that I might not have opinions if you ask me off camera, but like the question of whether any particular person I go on to argue with is like a good person or a bad person or a smart person or a dumb person or this kind of person or that kind of person. Like, I'm just happy to like let the leave that to the audience to make their own judgments, that they like, that's not really what I'm there for. I'm happy to just like try to show that they're wrong, because I think that's the important thing, that if because I
mean, the title is "Give Them an Argument," right?
Yeah, right.
Not give them a character assassination. That's on later.
Yeah, that's right. It's like the all the talk radio stations that would, I don't know, maybe they still do. They'd play like Limbaugh and Hannity and stuff during the day, and then like late at night it would be coast to coast, and they talk about aliens and stuff. That's later in the night. We'll have to give them a character assassination, but. But no, I mean, I don't, like, because part of the thing too is it's like if you don't have something that you could say to these exact same things, if you didn't think that Charlie Kirk was a fill in the blank, right? That like you kind of don't have anything to say about the things themselves. Now, that said, there are some things in here that I know are funny, and I'm not above finding them funny. So we should probably get started. We are using the screen share from Ben Gleib rather than Charlie, because there is that moment at the end that sort of disputed whether it's like a illegitimate edit, because it's unclear whether the show's supposed to be over or not. So that's the only reason we're doing that. But I don't know. Enjoy.
Let's do it. Is it okay if I drink coffee during the
be talking about abortion. The way it will work is very,
which is funny, by the way, because I just happened to watch the other day, and I actually remembered seeing this live when it first happened, because I'm old, but and also this doesn't reflect well on me at all, but I used to watch the Bill Maher show every week, and
I watch it too.
The clip that I saw always makes me laugh. It's Christopher Hitchens on Bill Maher in like 2004 or something, and he just comes out and he's carrying this like glass of scotch, and Bill starts laughing and says like it's not that uncommon that people come on talk shows and they'll like pour booze in a coffee cup or something, but like it's pretty rare that you just kind of come on, you're like, yep, there you go.
I love it.
Let's do it.
structured, and then we will enter into the laissez-faire, unregulated portion of the conversation. Feel free to interrupt each other and have all sorts of fun. And so it'll be 2 minutes, and then a series of 1 minute back and forth, and then off to the races. Opening statement will go to our guest. And we have here today on the set 2 people who thankfully were not aborted. So Ben, statement for you.
When we're done with this debate, maybe you'll be questioning that statement.
About you?
About yourself.
We'll see.
Okay.
So this is obviously a pretty contentious issue, one that affects women around the country, of course. So I think it's best that 2 men are debating it. And it is actually, though, I say that sarcastically, but really it is because we all need to be able to support each other. And so I prepared some things to say at the beginning, just food for thought to go. I'd like to start by quoting a woman who wrote a very interesting article in the Washington Post. Very funny article, too. She said about some of the hypocrisies of this position being anti-choice. We believe in freedom. Your fist must stop where my nose starts. Except this one minor thing is obviously not a big deal, where you have to use your body to build another body from whole cloth, give it eyeballs and a circulatory system, undergo months and months of creeping bodily horror as your torso becomes unrecognizable to you. Familiar smells become off-putting, and then at the end of this process, you have a human being for whom you have to arrange a life. Compare that minor, barely palpable discomfort with the shocking, invasive horror of placing a strip of fabric across your nose when entering a business for 3 to 5 minutes. I shudder just imagining it. You can cough and breathe on whoever you like. It's a God-given right. Nothing worse as a human than to have to conceal your exquisite nose. We don't believe in restricting anyone from living as he chooses unless, of course, it's tangible minor things like who wants to vote or get abortions, or both of which are going to disproportionately, of course, impact people of color. But does that matter? I guess not. After all, it's your body, and of course, we view your autonomy as sacred and worthy of protection. It's just that if your body contains a uterus, it does not technically belong to you. It's more of a vacant lot for us to regulate as we see fit, and your neighbors to be encouraged to sue about. So no matter our race, our gender, or our zip code, that's the end of the quote, this is me now, I believe we all should be able to come to a consensus that we can decide for ourselves whether and when to have children. But a handful of politicians today are trying to pass laws that destroy our freedoms, undermine our rights, and endanger our futures. They make decisions that force people to struggle, to simply make ends meet or care for their families, and then shame and blame those that they force that into. And while they're busy fighting for our most basic rights, they hand the money that they take from our healthcare and our schools to our kids' futures and their corporate donors. We are in a democracy, not a theocracy, and it's nuts to allow government to think they can have a say in the choices a woman makes for her own body. And the last most important point is that by doing this, women will die. Young girls will die. Without safe places to go for abortions, they will still find a way to get. Our daughters, friends, nieces, teachers, mothers will die. Would you rather your daughter die, if you have a daughter one day, or make a safe choice for her own life, or decide to start a family for her own life? And if you choose die, how is that pro-life?
Thank you. Okay, so I think the entire kind of framing of this debate first needs to start with the type of privilege that we have. Both you and I have age privilege and size privilege.
Yeah.
To say that we believe that certain life should not exist. There's been 62 million abortions in America since the ruling of Roe versus Wade. So if you go to just a 7th grade textbook of what is a living being, or what is a being that has some sort of life, it will say that it's distinct and that it is whole. What makes a human life so incredibly unique and so magical is you do not need to encourage or tell that life to grow. It's not like a Corvette on an assembly line. Is that human life will develop naturally.
Sorry.
It's really kind of goes down to the question of when does human life begin? When does personhood begin? And the science of embryology says very clearly that life, human life, begins at conception. Now, speaking non-scientifically as a moral argument, we have overseen the slaughter of our fellow citizens over the last couple decades. This is a genocide, dare I say a holocaust of our citizens that has occurred since Roe versus Wade. You talked about women. Well, just statistically, half of the 62 million abortions since Roe versus Wade are 31 million women that never had the chance to live. We have a luxury and a privilege that we are able to say we are old enough and developed enough. We're larger and we're older to say to another life right now that's in the womb that you have no right to exist. You talked briefly about the racial part of it. 900 black babies a day are aborted every single day in this country. We need to have a moral question here of when does life begin? What is a human being? If it is not your DNA, it is not your choice. And we, as a society of human beings, the least we can do is ask ourselves the question, are those people, are those persons in the womb worthy of protection? I would contend absolutely. It is the most important moral question, I think, we as Americans and we in a free society can debate and discuss, that all life is worthy of protection.
Loves it. So lots of problems with what you said. Let me start picking them apart. First, as a Jewish person, I take large offense to comparing a life that never got to exist to a Holocaust, which killed my family who did get to exist and were snuffed out. To say those are even comparable is deeply offensive, but let's put that aside for a second. You said that the definition by your own words and by the science of embryology is that life is distinct. But an embryo is not distinct of the mother whom it is literally attached to and dependent on it for all nutrients and all survival. If it can survive in this world, if it can take a breath and go on to live, that is a distinct being, and you've got a great argument there. But without that, you simply do not. And you also contradicted yourself when you said that it is life, and then a minute later you said, never got the chance to live. A life had a chance to live if it's a life, right? So, in fact, it did not have a chance to live because it's not a life yet until it is born. Booyah, baby.
Okay, so
Yeah, I like ending an argument with booyah.
Yeah.
I do.
We should all start doing that every time, you know.
What about the thing that struck me was like, it's not your DNA. It actually is. I mean, is he a geneticist? I mean, it is a lot of my and whoever the partner is DNA. That, you know, it's not a distinct DNA. It's my DNA passed down. So he's like, he just made the argument for no government involvement. He's like, if it's not your DNA, you shouldn't be able to choose. Okay, debate's over. I didn't know you were on my side.
Yeah, that was weird. I mean, I think that what he's probably trying to get at there is it's a distinct life because it has its own, like, yeah, I mean, as you say, it's DNA from you and from, you know, the other person, but but like that's a distinct combination. I mean,
okay.
I think the real idea, like the real question is why is that important, right? Like why is the, you know, like presumably it wasn't like when DNA was discovered by Watson and Crick or whatever, everybody was like, oh, so that's why human life is important. I see.
Yes.
Now I get why it's wrong to kill people because they have their own DNA. Like that just seems beside the point.
Ben made a point at the beginning about like, it was a joke, but I guess there's no live audience that at least has a sense of humor or feels like they could laugh or whatever, which was the thing about like, it's two guys debating this. And even if it was a woman and a guy debating it, you cannot cross that bridge of someone who's grown a life in their body to someone who has not. I'm sorry, you can kind of get there mentally, but that is something that only can be understood and known via the experience of it. So even having that, it's not going to help the argument because the other person is really not ever going to be able to understand fully what it is to go through the process of creating a creating a body that functions inside of your own body that will then be ready to function outside of your own body.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this comes up sometimes because people will sort of talk about like who should have an opinion about this, and
I mean, people can have an opinion, right? But I just feel like this lack of experiential ability to have experiential knowledge of it is just something that it's like an a priori deficit in the conversation. Yeah. Although he can't bring on a woman because then it would be everything the woman said would be like, well, I get it, and you don't. So he'd have to debate, a guy.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the only time I've ever done a debate on this topic, I was in the weird position of it being me, and that I was arguing with a pro-life woman. So I don't know. I mean, I think that
that is fascinating.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
you should have the right to choice. And she's like, no, what right do I have? And you're like, my head is going to explode, lady. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that like you can. I mean, the part that I would agree with is that there is a sense in which a lot of this stuff is a failure of. I think there's like a failure of empathy for a lot of this that you have that a lot of times pro-life arguments are presented in this way that sort of makes it sound like it's not that big a deal to be forced to like share your body with another being for 9 months and take all these risks and and all this stuff, and that like sort of or people will say things like, I don't know if Charlie says this in any point of the debate, sure, a fetus is dependent on the mother, but whatever, young child is dependent on their parents, as if that were the same thing as actually like existed inside somebody else's body, so that the breaths they take oxygenate your blood and all that stuff. But
don't even send me on the road of like, well, children need their parents, but not when they're in a cage at the border. Then they're just fine, and that's not abusive in any way. Like I can't. Okay, sorry, getting off topic.
No, right. But I mean, but I mean, that is the interesting thing, because I mean, that does make the make the point, right? If they think that's okay, they clearly understand that there's a sense in which children, emotionally, right, might need their parents, but like that's
well, only when it's convenient do they need that.
right,
point.
Exactly.
They're
but
political.
Like, you could have somebody else care for them, whereas like a first trimester fetus, literally you couldn't.
Right.
I also like the point Joe makes in the chat that eyeballs are distinct in a hole in a way, right? I don't know what that means.
Yeah, just pluck them out and they'll be alive on their own. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Because like I would understand what distinct, like what Ben seems to.
They're not distinct at all until they come out.
Yeah,
and can live.
Right, I understand what distinct means if it means like viable outside the womb or something like that. But like that doesn't, whatever Charlie means must be different from that, but he hasn't really told us yet. And I think, the big thing for me is always like, why is, if you just want to emphasize, okay, this is something that has human DNA and is alive, like why is that the most important thing, right? I mean, is that really why you think that it's wrong to kill other people, that they have human DNA? Is that really that important? Like,
yeah, right. Talk about speciesist.
Yeah, right. Like if the if there really were like the aliens from the different kinds of aliens in Star Trek, would it be just fine to kill them? Because they had different DNA. Presumably, no, right? So it must be something else about people that.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of hunters that don't mind killing a deer. They're not the sanctity of life of anything other than like this, like human being as way above this. It's such a religious thing that like man is put here to just men, not women. Man is put here to dominate and subjugate other species, and we're way better than them because we can think. And I'm like, well, it hasn't worked out great. We're killing everyone. I don't know if that makes us better, but it's right here on this planet right now. Not even the aliens. It's like we're happy to kill everyone. The only one we want to talk about is this issue so that we can get people to vote against their own best economic interests. It's like the entry drug.
No, totally. I mean, which is also, I mean, I would be super fascinated, like, to see if they actually would. I mean, I guess unfortunately now that we have a 6-3 Republican Supreme Court, we might find out, right? But like to see if they actually would, because it's like, man, if you take this off the table,
thank you.
If you've already banned abortion, then what are you going to do to get people excited about voting for Republicans now? Like you're certainly not going to start talking about, let's not raise the minimum wage. Like that's not going to be your thing. So you
see, that's not I guess it's weird to love someone because they think like you, but maybe not. But I have tried to have this conversation with people who are working in the field of reproductive justice, of voting around pro-choice issues, electing pro-choice candidates, and they just won't hear it. They're like, no, this fight continues forever. And I'm like, maybe not though. Like if we lose it,
Right.
So I don't know. I don't want to lose it, but I also feel like there's
right.
always a possibility for anti-fascist things to happen, even around, have anti-fascist consequences, democratically related consequences to, say, fascist events. So I don't know. I try to keep my hopes up.
Fair enough. All right, let's watch some more.
But that is such a good point. Okay, go ahead.
Do you understand how dumb that argument is?
I don't understand.
That's like saying you never had a chance to live if I killed you right now.
What
I'm saying is that the baby was alive and it got murdered in the womb, therefore it never had a chance to live past the point of it being alive. What I meant is that it never had a chance to live to a 5-year-old birthday or a 15-year-old birthday or a 30-year-old birthday. Again, using age and size privilege that you have and I have, you say, you know what, we should be able to quash and quelch the 62 million human beings that never had a chance to live outside of the womb. Here's the basic syllogism that I bring as a pro-life advocate. It is always wrong to intentionally kill a human life. Abortion is intentionally killing a human life. Therefore, abortion is morally wrong. And so you're going to be making an argument about choice, but some choices are wrong. For example, it's wrong to kill human beings. So you're going to have to make an argument to the audience why either A, this is not a human life, or B, why the mother has the right to murder her own child.
Sure. I'm going to choose the former of those options.
I'm going to kill that guy.
I do not believe it is a life. And it's easy to make that point. But let me first say this. You are saying that it is a life that got snuffed out. And I don't mean to pull my age privilege on you, but I'm a little older than you. How old are you, Charlie?
27.
27. How come you didn't say 28?
Because I'll be 28 in 2 weeks.
But if life begins at conception, you're 10 months older than that, and you actually are 28. Why don't you say 28?
Because that's the way we categorize birthdays.
That's the way you celebrate your life. That's the way we acknowledge life. That's the way the birthday begins when you are born.
So I'll let you
if life begins at conception,
I'll let you finish.
If life begins at conception, you would count your life from the moment that egg was fertilized. Sure. When you were the size of a poppy seed, not even a poppy seed, but after a couple of days, a poppy seed size life that you're celebrating that great birthday. But you don't, because you don't actually believe that it is a human life. You do believe if you believe the science, it's quite obvious that it is the germ of a life. It's the beginning of a life. It's the beginning of a gestation of a life. If you're building a cake, baking a cake, you take the ingredients. When that cake is done, you got a cake. No one is saying it's a cake when it's ingredients that will become, after baking, a cake. And if you throw that cake away because it doesn't come out properly into ever being a cake, you don't say, man, you just threw away a perfectly good cake. No, you say that cake never became a cake.
So I'm just curious, and we'll just kind of go into the. Okay,
I like eating, so I'm a cake guy. Please,
are you okay going back and forth?
Sure.
So when does human life begin?
I think human life begins at birth.
At birth.
Yes.
So it's okay to terminate a child right up to 9 months, full development, full birth, for full breath, feeling, all of it.
No, I don't personally believe that, no.
So when is a human life worthy of constitutional and legal protection?
I believe
when it can live outside the fucking womb on its own.
Becomes one that we should do our damnedest to protect when it is viable outside of the womb. That's my belief.
There you go.
Viable, like
when it can survive without the mother being connected and feeding all nutrients to it.
That's 3 or 4 years old. If you can hunt and gather on yourself, a 2-year-old is totally dependent on the mother. Should we be able to kill 2-year-olds?
You should have seen me as a 2-year-old.
Idiot.
Hey, I just want to point out, he's making exactly the argument I said he'd make. I have not seen this part.
Awesome.
But I mean, this does go back to why, I mean, whenever you think about, who should be arguing about this or whatever, like we were talking about earlier, like why I do kind of agree with you that there is I mean, look, we obviously need to be able to, I hope, understand enough of what other people's experiences are that we're not doing like horrifically unjust things to them. But this is definitely a way that you can tell with people like Charlie Kirk. He's not taking, he's just not taking it seriously. That there's a difference between the sense in which a 2-year-old is dependent on their parents.
He must not have any kids.
and the sense in which a fetus is dependent on their mother, because the 2-year-old, sure, it wouldn't last for long without some adult, taking care of them. But as with your point about the border, right? Like it doesn't, for at least for survival, right? It doesn't have to be that adult, and there's just there's a pretty big difference between somebody being dependent in the sense that like they're not going to be able to hunt for their own food.
Yeah, right.
It's also a weird example because, like, I think a lot of adults couldn't do that.
Like this one, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we
came down. I heard a cat in the background. I almost always have a cat. And I'm like, okay, if the apocalypse comes, you got to go catch those chipmunks. Okay, that's your job in this family, because I'm not going to be able to do it. Ben, I have a question. Is the framing of this debate like, why should abortion be outlawed, or is the framing of the debate, that's the framing, right? Why it should or shouldn't be legal?
I guess so far it's actually a little unclear to me, like whether they're talking about whether it should or shouldn't be legal or just whether it's wrong. But you're right. I mean, that's obviously a distinction we should make, because like there's tons of stuff I think is wrong, but I think I don't think it should be illegal, right?
Exactly. Should we? That was the question that came up there. He's like, so you have to prove the morality of whatever. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if this is about proving the morality, fine. And you're also basing, I hate to do this right up front, but you're basing morality on the 10 commandments of thou shalt not kill. And that is a Christian, I don't know I'm not a religious scholar, but like, one day I saw a squirrel in the park suffering greatly. I told the staff said, okay, we'll handle it. And I said, are you going to kill it? And they said, well, probably. And I said, good, because it is suffering. And, and I'm for like assisted end of life. I hate the word suicide, but like chosen end of life care. Yeah, whatever. Whatever you want to, it's like a slur against it. So there's way more to this than just like, is it a killing a baby? There's just, I hope we, you and I can talk about it all night, but I'm sure maybe they'll get into it. I didn't see that depth of, I guess we've all agreed as a society, don't kill people. And so, given the basis of that argument,
Yeah, but of course, I mean, so Charlie's syllogism at the beginning, he said, first premise, it's always wrong. I think he said it's always wrong to intentionally kill a human being. And
my head exploded.
I think, okay, well, hold on. You don't believe that. Nobody believes that, right? Like if it's, I mean, here's one way I know that Charlie doesn't believe that he was against withdrawing from Afghanistan, right? Like that's right. Every day, there are American soldiers there. They're going to be killing some human beings. And even aside from that, right, which I mean, whatever is wrong about that, but like everybody thinks that there are circumstances in which it's okay to kill human beings. Like,
I mean, everyone who works at Monsanto and takes a paycheck home from there.
Yeah, well, right.
There's a lot of people who seem to think it's just fine. Like killing human beings only means like use my hands to kill them, not contribute to a society, a slow death of people being poisoned by Monsanto or the bees dying and then us not having any fruit or food. Like if you're contributing to a slow death just because it's slow and over there and not like hands on, isn't that also a kind of a murder argument?
Yeah, but I mean, like, okay, I mean, all that stuff is unjustified, but you could even say, like, here's some stuff I think we probably all think, I mean, almost all, I mean, I guess, like, there might be some, like, super extreme, like, fringe, well, don't, but, like, almost everybody would agree that if somebody is, like, attacking you with a knife in a dark alley, it's okay to intentionally kill them to defend yourself. Like,
sure.
That's totally uncontroversial. And it just seems like, okay, whether, I mean, obviously, like, that's the question, right? Whether intentionally killing a fetus, is necessarily wrong. Although I also agree with you that should be the only question, because I mean, I hope everybody could come up with a long list of things that they think are wrong, but they don't think should be illegal. Like I think it's wrong to cheat on your significant other. I think it's wrong to like it's wrong to be to be intentionally like cruel in how you deal with other people interpersonally. I think it's whatever, but like it would be an authoritarian hellscape if we had like laws against any of these things.
Exactly.
So.
Not to mention that sometimes that fetus is actually basically a loaded weapon that will cause an embolism, that will cause something to kill the mother. So
yeah, right. I mean, good question. Like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, and that right to self-defense. Well, most of us think that only applies when the other person is intentionally trying to kill you. I mean, if you have,
but if they're unintentionally going to kill you, you should still be able to defend you. Stand your ground.
Yeah, totally.
Stand your ground, people. Yeah.
I mean, if somebody is like, extremely unrealistic, I know, but like if somebody is like somehow like sleepwalking, and in the course of sleepwalking, they're going to sleep kill you, or whatever. Like somebody's been captured by terrorists and put the suicide vest on it, and they're like slowly lowering them towards you, and they're going to blow up when they hit the ground, right? It's presumably fine to have self-defense there, and it just seems like so what what I would have done differently here is that so far, other Ben here had just accepted, the principle that like, it's always wrong to intentionally kill a human being, and he's just going to fight about whether it's a life or whether it's a human or something. And always, this stuff always drives me crazy because I don't know what anybody means by that, right? Like, do you mean being a person, to having the rights of a person like that? That's not. I mean, sure. I mean, there's some minimal biological sense, which a fetus is definitely alive, but it's not. I don't think that's really what anybody means when they argue about this stuff. Like if scientists in some crazy science fiction future found a way to keep a human hand alive in a laboratory that wasn't attached to a body, would you think ending the experiment would be murder? Probably not. So even though it's alive and it's human.
I don't know if they're going to get to this because, like I said, I didn't watch the whole thing, but yet we're getting there. Maybe we should just keep going. I'm sure they're going to get to more stuff. I don't know. I was going to say, I'm sure they're going to get here. I don't want to blow it all at the beginning.
Sure. Okay, let's go. Let's keep going.
Okay.
Well, that was very crafty.
So how about 18 months?
Listen, some kids can survive on their own.
So your moral position is to be able to kill 6-month-olds because they have to breastfeed for their mother. No. I'm simply saying when something is attached and dependent on the nutrients of life, like
and dependent on the ability. No, a 6-month-old.
A 6-month-old can go hunt and gather and grow their own crops.
Nobody could probably crawl around and find some crumbs on the ground. We live in a society.
Someone could give it some formula.
Created by somebody else.
Everything's dependent. Hunting and gathering's dependent on there being animals around.
A 15-year-old or a 20-year-old has the reason, the capacity, and the maturity to be able to not be dependent on other human being.
I don't know if you've seen 15.
So your moral position is that if you are dependent on another, you should be able to be terminated.
No.
Okay, so what is your moral position? Like when that should be protected by the law.
I think your life should be protected by the law when it is born, because that is the only marker we all agree on. You yourself
why
said,
when it's born?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because you yourself have said that, and it was a really well-made point that you made, and I'll quote you back to you. You said, we have a universal standard for when death is, but we do not have a universal standard for when life begins, and we should. And then you go on to say, and I believe life begins at conception.
I do, yes.
But you then put your own personal belief at the end of that great quote. We do currently have a universal standard that we all agree when life begins at least, and that's from birth. Some believe it begins earlier, but not all. If
your argument is to change how we do birthdays, I'm totally on board for that.
Fair enough.
So I'm actually 28 years old.
Thank you. If you want someone changes Wikipedia. If you want the universal standard, you so seek. The universal standard we currently have is from birth. So my very important point to you here is if you want to work harder to get that universal standard to change and to convince the populace to get on board with redefining that, do so with argument, do so with fair, good faith argument to get the population on board and change the position of the country. Great, I'm all for you trying to do that. But until you do, the universal standard of when life begins is when somebody is born. Life doesn't exist without being alive in the world. Life is life. Until you're in the world and have a consciousness and the ability to think and to experience and to develop, you are not yet a life.
Yeah. So we'll just resume going back and forth. Sure. So
life begins when life begins. That's the current definition of it, and its definition of words.
The science of embryology is when deoxyribonucleic acid is formed. So I just want to make sure we're clear.
That's the science of embryology, not of lifeology. That's when an embryo begins.
You just made up a word called lifeology.
And you made up a science of embryology as though that defines birth.
I did not make a science of embryology. It is a well-studied
you're jumping and leaping that is what life is.
So wait, do you think when DNA is formed, it's okay just to eliminate it? It will never be formed again. It is distinct. It is unique.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that's a great.
Totally
that's the science of
human beings.
So,
yes, and
live outside of the womb.
And you're a genocidal murderer every time you masturbate, Charlie.
Why?
Nice.
Sperm,
no, but
and every head of sperm has DNA.
First of all,
and it is a distinct thing that's swimming around.
It never formed.
And there's
never
millions
fertilized
of
with
them,
an egg.
Hundreds of millions.
Never fertilized.
So I can jerk off all I want, says that guy.
Never fertilized with an egg. Let me ask you a question.
Why is that your line?
Because that's what I said. When a unique DNA is formed with an egg, that's what the science of embryology says.
And the science of science also says.
The science of science.
The science of science.
You understand how dumb you sound, right?
The science of spermology
I'm an asshole.
also says
Spermology.
that sperm is alive. You deny sperm is alive.
Do I deny that sperm is alive? That is my own sperm, and your fixation with sperm is like creepy and kind of weird, honestly.
Oh, it's trying to escape it. Yeah.
My moral position to protect the unborn is one that I wish you had.
I wish you had that same dedication to protect the born children.
Yes, that was good.
You don't. You're
6
against
weeks,
funding it at most turns.
The child's eyes and eyelids, nose and mouth and tongue have formed. Terminated. That's okay? Child's eyelids, nose, mouth, and tongue. Terminate?
Well, they're not real human ones. They're developing ones.
Got it. So electrical brain activity can be detected at 6 or 7 weeks and by the end of the 8th week. Terminate?
Yeah.
So, by the way, my understanding is that electrical brain activity at 6 or 7 weeks. That's not right. That's
definitely not.
That's way later. That's way earlier than it actually is. I'd also say that that there's probably a gap between there's some sort of electricity going on in your brain and that's detectable, and there's consciousness and the possibility of thoughts and feelings and all that stuff. I mean, the electricity running through my computer doesn't mean there's an operating system up and running. Like that's a minimum condition maybe, but that's like and yeah, it's so weird that and they all do this, that they think that, oh, you have eyelids, or that's going to be really important. Or one they're usually obsessed with, that I think really is about 6 weeks, is there's a heartbeat. And I've never understood this, why anybody thinks that that's relevant to anything.
Okay, I could tell you.
Okay, yeah, please.
Because I have a 5-year-old, and when you go to this is not the position of most leftists, right?
Yeah.
You go to get, or maybe it is. I don't know. Put in the comments, then you can read about it. When my experience and a lot of women's experience, I'm not going to say everyone, I do believe that it's the kind of thing people talk about. You're pregnant, you find out. And if you're not considering terminating, you're just kind of like, here it is, oh, we're doing this. Okay. And you go and you get that sonogram. And when you hear the heartbeat, something happens as a mom. You're just like, oh, fuck, it's real. Sorry. That it's like a thing that happens. So these right-wing people take that and are like, that's when the life is, it's beating and you hear the heartbeat and, and it's hard because I think people on the left, they often don't embrace the sort of depth of spiritual connectedness that there can be with like two cells, but also especially that heartbeat moment. So the argument doesn't necessarily mean that it's still not a woman's right to choose should not be protected, and that is a moral argument. But how do we split those two? I haven't seen. Most people just shy away, and I think it's to the detriment of people trying to keep choice for women to just kind of never talk about those sort of mystical, magical, we don't want to talk about those things because we're scientific and rational, but it kind of has that effect when you go there. So if we could, when you get that first heartbeat sonogram, I can only speak from my own experience. And I've heard this over and over. We're getting that sonogram. Okay, I don't even know if this is real. Holy shit! They come home. They're like, wow, and they start buying pants. Like stuff. Yeah, it becomes real to people at that point.
Yeah, although I do wonder when you say it becomes real to people. Like I think that if because we might talk that way about a lot of things like that, like if there's something that I'm really looking forward to happening in the future, and like I don't know, I get the and I've got whatever, like obviously not in the same league, but like there's but like whatever, just like any normal thing that like we might talk about, like, oh, hey, this book is coming out. That's amazing. Like I just got the author copy. It's a little bit more real to me now, right? Like you're sort of, it makes it more vivid that it's going to happen. And that makes sense. But also, presumably we don't actually think that the reason it's bad to kill people is that we have beating hearts. No. For one thing,
right.
For one thing.
Good point. That's very...
If you eat meat,
sharp point on that.
Right? Like then, right? All of those things had heartbeats, right? That can't be it, Like, but even if you don't, do you really like if you're talking about euthanasia and end of life stuff earlier? And granted, I know that a lot of people who take Charlie's position on abortion are always also against all of that, but like, if somebody is completely brain dead, but their heart is still beating, right? Is like, does that
keep them alive, Ben?
Yeah, I don't. Right. So that really doesn't seem like the kinds of things that I think that we usually care about when we think that like we care about people. It's that's
the way they are also talking about it is that the fetus and the mother are two. Sometimes they talk about it like it's two separate things, and sometimes they talk about it like it's one thing, but they never talk about it like it is in the context of society, right? Mm-hmm. So like they never really talk about, from what I've seen, maybe they'll get to it, but they don't really talk about the fact that we want to stop abortion and make it illegal, but we also don't want to do those things that will help people. The main reason women have abortions in the United States right now, I think most of your viewers know, is for economic reasons. Right. It will plunge them into poverty. Women do not want to have the emotional turmoil of watching their child suffer and starve, right? In our society. Right. That is very painful.
No, absolutely. I've always thought it's not like if abortion is legal, but you have crazy poverty and economic inequality, well, that's more choice than you'd have if you had crazy economic inequality and poverty, but it was illegal. So it's still good. It's still worth defending. But like, that's not meaningful choice. Meaningful choice would be, sure, it's legal and it's covered, by Medicare for all or whatever, but also nobody's under any kind of economic pressure to not have a child that they actually want to have.
Yeah, if they want to decrease the rate, it's a disingenuous argument to keep it being about when does life start. Mm-hmm. If it's about how do we make abortions happen less because we believe they're immoral, well, there's a lot of ways you could do that. There are a lot of ways. Free healthcare for pregnant women, free childcare, for So how about just giving mothers money for being mothers, raising good next generation people that can see us through the next, into the future, where eventually we will, luckily, the lucky of us will be too old and feeble to care for ourselves, and we will need these people to be kind, caring individuals who have contributed greatly to a loving society. I think motherhood is a service to society on its own, totally uncompensated, of course. You get a card on one day and everyone agrees and they spout platitudes on the frickin' View. But, mothering is the hardest job. Well, it is a hard job, especially since we don't get paid at all. And, everyone in society's life and well-being depends on how well we do it. So it's just the debate itself is completely just detached from reality.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. All right. Let's try to get through some.
Anyway, let's get back to it.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. By 10 weeks after
It's
conception,
also, by the way,
the
half a
child can
centimeter.
make bodily movements.
It's half a centimeter big at this point
Right.
and
So
0.25 of an ounce.
I'm taller than you, so I should be able to terminate you.
No, because we're
Okay,
talking about
yes.
scale. How tall are you?
I'm 6'4", much taller than you.
6'1".
So your
Not
moral
much.
argument is taller people should be able to terminate smaller people. Got it.
Never
From
said
his
that.
that's what you said. It's small, therefore you can terminate.
No,
From
you're
as early
listing
as
things
12
that make it life.
weeks,
I'm listing
and
things that don't.
certainly by 20 weeks, an unborn child can feel pain. Is it okay to terminate a child that can feel pain?
Pain, that is a disputed scientific fact, because pain without the ability to understand any sort of context is not pain as humans know it. They register what is happening, but it is not pain as though, oh man, this hurts.
So if something can't register the pain, it's okay to torture something?
Correct, if it can't register the pain.
So if someone is on a ventilator, someone is in comatose and you torture them, that's morally acceptable?
Cannot register the pain, then it's not registering the pain.
Let me ask you a question. Are you okay with abortions for people that found out they are pregnant with Down syndrome children?
I wouldn't do it.
Are you okay with, is it morally okay for a society to embrace that?
I haven't thought about that. I think a lot of people with Down syndrome live beautiful lives.
So are they worthy of protection?
That's not a fair thing to ask.
Why?
Because I'm saying that fetuses with Down syndrome or fetuses without Down syndrome are not children. So you're going to a specific within the whole, but I'm arguing that all of it is not a human life yet. So you're going specific.
So let me ask you a
within it.
question. What species is it on the animal kingdom? If it's not a human life, what kind of life is it?
It's not a life.
It's not, well, you just said it was a human life.
No, I did not say it was a human life.
So it's not alive?
It is not.
So something with eyelids, nose, mouth, and a heartbeat is not alive?
So
What is it? Is it dead?
So a sperm with DNA and a head that can swim and find an egg is not alive. Is it dead?
Well, it's not been fertilized with an egg with a
Why
unique
is fertilizing?
and form,
It is
because
unique.
according to science of embryology, that sperm, when it is formed with an egg, creates a new being of deoxyribonucleic acid that is formed, that is magical, unique, and distinct only to that moment, therefore worthy of conception, and begins the process of the development of a full human being, where the sperm, independent of that, does not have that. Again, your fixation with sperm, kind of weird.
My sperm is magical and unique and worthy of whatever.
Funny.
I got good sperm, and that's just a public service announcement for people that want to know. You can't say my obsession with the first building block of life is weird, but your obsession with 6 hours later or 3 days later when it hits an egg is not weird.
But you admit there's something magical that happens once that sperm and egg meet, that a human life begins, that process begins, that a new DNA is formed, where two beings become one. Don't you admit that?
I think it's as magical as the incredible thing that we are given sex drives that compel us to ejaculate and that compel women to drop an egg to have the potential to receive life. That is as equally magical. But you don't contend those are lives. You don't think
Interesting.
Let me ask you a question.
And you don't think sperm ejaculation is murder.
So since you're so bizarrely fascinated with sperm,
you're bizarrely fascinated with women's bodies and regulating them, even though you're not a woman.
I am very fascinated in saving babies' lives. I will not stop advocating for that. So let me ask you a question. Since you're fixated on sperm, a sperm, absent meeting an egg, does what?
It dies.
Once a sperm meets an egg, uninterrupted from abortion interference, does what?
Oftentimes, it will fertilize it. Obviously, not always.
And live.
No, and begin.
And grow.
And continue. I even begin. Continue the building blocks of life. No, it continues.
And live a full life.
Not true.
So your argument of your kind of creepy fixation with sperm which is that the sperm, absent the fertilization of the
You
egg,
want to keep saying
does
creepy
not
fixation on
continue
sperm
to
so
grow,
your followers can
but
message
once
that to
the
me.
sperm
You have a creepy fixation
meets
with
with
controlling
eggs,
women's bodies. So
it
stop that
turns
phrase if you
into
want me
a
to listen
human
to
life
you. Stop that phrase.
and grows
If I'm making a
and
well, wait,
develops.
stop. If I'm making
You're
a
the one
Charlie,
that wants to interfere and
Charlie,
destroy
I'm
a
not hearing this
baby
point because if you're
to be
going to
able
make,
to grow.
if you want to make a scientific argument,
I have.
then don't make a stupid point over and over again about part of that scientific
No,
argument.
I'm just clarifying the lack of wisdom in your argument.
Lack of
where
wisdom.
you say
How?
sperm independent of meeting an egg does what?
It dies if it
So
doesn't.
once
Oh,
the
man.
sperm meets the egg, uninterfered by an abortionist, it does what?
It dies. And an
No,
egg.
it lives. A sperm meeting an
Oh,
egg,
sperm meeting an egg, right?
uninterfered with an abortionist, it does
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
what? But when it does develop, it
Eventually becomes
becomes
a life
you
when it's born.
or me
When it's born.
or our fellow human beings.
And when
No.
it doesn't, when it leads to a miscarriage or a child with pregnancy, it doesn't lead to those things. And then abortions can, or not even abortions, D&C procedures.
No,
can
no,
help
no.
clear that out so the woman can go on to have a family in the future. Let me ask you a question. You're so against abortion and protecting lives,
I'm very pro baby.
but you are okay with abortion if it saves a woman's life. Why?
So actually, I will clarify that. That's so exceedingly rare. And in fact,
Great.
over 1,000 OBGYNs, nurses, and neonatologists sign a declaration stating, quote, as experienced practitioners and researchers in gynecology, we affirm that direct abortion, the purposeful destruction of an unborn child, is almost never medically necessary to save the life of a woman. So in the extraordinarily rare case, which is so hard to find and pinpoint.
Well, it's not so hard to find. It happens, and there's many.
Very rare. Well, these
millions of
1,000
documented cases.
OBGYNs say no.
That's
Gotta
Thank you.
gotta just say on this two things. One, the binder is not a good look, but two, that okay, so like half the country or whatever is pro-life, and and like lots of like churches insist on it and whatever. So it's like that. I'm sure you can find 1,000 people who do any job who agree with your ideology about this. I don't know what that's supposed to prove.
I really wish that Ben was wearing a microphone like George W. Bush did during his debates, and I could just just be like, what you want to say right now? You want to stop answering the guy's questions and just sit there and ask him some questions. You want, like a little debate prep, because he keeps putting, he keeps putting Ben back on his heels kind of in this defensive posture. But what I would like to say is that he's making the argument, Charlie is making the argument that when these two ribonucleic whatever the fucks come together, then something magical happens and it makes life. But actually what happens is, it makes just like a chemical reaction, which is what we all are in the first place. So if he just said, well, it's actually a chemical reaction that outside of the body would not be viable. And, it's actually a chemical reaction. It's a chemical reaction, and just keep going back to like what it actually is in different terminology, because Charlie's got him on the ropes with that life argument.
Yeah.
Baby protector,
Yeah. I mean, I think like the one thing that Ben did say here that I liked was the cake analogy that you could say, like Judith Jarvis Thompson, has the thing about how like an acorn is something that if nothing goes wrong, it develops, et cetera, will one day be a tree. But then we don't say that an acorn is a tree.
Mm-hmm.
It is something that has the potential to become a tree.
Yes,
and that seems like what he should be saying here. But I think that part of the problem is that he's doing the usual sort of weird sloppy thing where it's not really clear what they're arguing about, because they keep using these words like life. And it's like, okay, but what is, I don't understand what that means, because it seems like 99% of the time when people say life, what they really mean is a person or a being that we have moral duties to or something like that. But there's that's not obviously the same thing as life. I mean, if you have something like if you have like the Frankenstein's monster and you've got the juice running through it or whatever, but you haven't put the head on, like it's.
I mean, he makes a good point about the sperm. The sperm is alive.
Right. Right. Like it just like why this should be the thing, that like something is alive. I mean, animals are alive, plants are alive, lots of bacteria are alive, COVID's alive, like that doesn't, like being alive versus not being alive doesn't really seem like the issue. And you might say, I guess Charlie would say that, well, it's being alive and being human that matters, but I also don't understand why. Like I think that we normally think that human life deserves to be protected because human life normally takes the form of people who, and we think we have moral obligations to people, and we can argue about why, whether it's like has something to do with all that, all that stuff you mentioned earlier, being rational and all of that, or whether it has nothing to do with that. It's just wrong because people, have, because of something more basic than that like even very.
Autonomy is really part of life, like a certain level of autonomy. And they did talk about that a little bit before, that with that disingenuous argument about like the 2-year-old should be killed then because he needs, a mother. The guy forgot about wet nurses.
Exactly. Like it's not like, it's not like when women die in childbirth, you say immediately like, oh, well, all right, well, I guess we need 2 coffins here because there's no possible way that a baby's life can be sustained, after with the death of his mother. I mean, clearly not, right? I mean, like this, So again, this is the distinction that he's conflated here is whether, a child or baby of some age can live without some adult doing the things that are necessary to keep it alive versus whether it can live without that particular person. And also, like, there's also just a difference between like the level of physical connection that you have to somebody if you're feeding them, even breastfeeding them, although there are now, it's 2021, right? There are options, but even breastfeeding, that's just not the same level of connection to another human being as literally having them exist inside your body. And maybe Charlie doesn't think that distinction is morally important, but he's just
it's even not that. You are one thing when you are pregnant. It's one being, and the being that has autonomy and is, not to go back to another Bush reference, but the decider, gets to decide. It's not autonomous. That he was saying before that I mean, we've kind of talking about this about, well, when it's DNA, then it has its own DNA, so it's autonomous. No, man, you are one being with 2 heartbeats, one being with 2 bladders, one, I guess, I don't know what you want to call it gender-wise, with possibly the other reproductive organs. It's really just one being. And, I think that argument that it's 2 separate beings then leads into this argument of like, you should be able to kill that one, and not kill that, or you shouldn't be able to kill that one. But it's really, when I've experienced this, you're not separate until you are at some point. And that's really out of your control also, because they come out early or they don't come out till late or they die while they're in there or whatever. You know what I mean? It's annoying that the rhetoric is you're 2 beings when really you're just one.
Yeah, I mean, even if you think it is a separate, being, it's a separate being that exists entirely in a way that's entirely dependent, entirely attached, to another one, which is pretty important because I think in most contexts we think that like everybody, Charlie Kirk, anybody, right? In most contexts thinks that bodily autonomy is really important, that people, die horrible deaths every day because they couldn't find a kidney donor in time, and they could be saved if we just held people down and performed surgery on them against their will. But we wouldn't do that because pretty much everybody agrees that would be a terrible violation of people's right to control their own bodies. And I mean, whatever, like even if he wants to argue that that's just outweighed in this case for whatever reason, it's just, he's just acting like the controlling your own body issue here just isn't even there, or it's not or maybe it's or that there's just no difference between that and keeping a born baby alive.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you.
So I don't know how to pronounce this. Wevin in the chat says viruses aren't really alive. Yeah, okay. I mean, it depends. I think it's borderline that viruses can use other cells to reproduce themselves. They check some of the boxes, but not others. But everybody agrees that plants are alive, and pretty much nobody, the most hardcore, vegan in the world doesn't think that they have a right to life. So just whatever you make of the virus's case, being alive, doesn't seem like it cuts it. But
I think that certain plants, like especially trees, have a right to be alive if you're going to cut them down for just some bullshit. That's okay. But anyway, that's a whole nother debate. They're like, it's blocking my sunshine on my driveway. Let's kill it. It's only 500 years old. Ah! Anyway, I'm just okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe. I think that
we don't have to go there.
I don't think the 500-year-old tree has a right to life for itself. I think you might say this is really cool thing to preserve for future generations.
Well, I don't agree. I think it does have the right to life for itself. That's a whole. We'll have Charlie on, and we can debate that.
All right, sounds good.
But I mean, it's an interesting thing because I really do believe that things have a right to life, but that at some point, it's just like this debate. There are other factors, that come into play, that a hierarchy of good, and that's exactly what's not being discussed here. They are saying baby / collection all the way down from single cell fucking organism when the first cell splits to fully functional, cute Gerber baby on the commercials have, there's no there's no levels of morality there. There's no hierarchy of good. And, the mother doesn't count at all. And that is very frustrating.
Yeah, right. I mean, this is, I think absolutely that you have, I'm not with you on the trees, but could 500-year-old ones we can keep around, because it's a cool thing for humans to to experience. But
I am so with me on the trees, especially because there's a lack of trees and there's a lack of oxygen and things are burning, and now it's a moral issue to keep trees alive for their own sake and for our sake. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, the oxygen thing seems like a good reason to keep a bunch of trees alive, but
that does seem like a good idea.
That I'm with you on. I don't think that the trees themselves have rights if we didn't need them for the oxygen.
Oh, I do.
Squirrels didn't need them squirrels didn't need them to have nests in and all that stuff. All those might be good reasons to keep the trees up. I don't care about the trees themselves, but
I do.
All right. I do care about people though, and
that's a hierarchy of good. You're saying, like the hierarchy of life, which we're coming full circle to the same point, even though we disagree about a tree's right to self-determination.
We disagree about the trees.
You're very utilitarian about my pine tree out there.
I mean, look, I don't necessarily, I think it probably provides cool atmosphere. It looks nice. It's
Well, what's the utility of the baby?
The baby, I think, does have rights on its own because it's a sentient being. See, the Ents from Lord of the Rings, they have a right to life, but actually existing trees that can't think or feel, I'm not with that. But
I don't know about that.
If you
Anyway, go ahead.
If you think that these people have rights, then
see, now if I was on with Charlie, he would say, "So you think a tree has rights, even though it can't think or feel?" And which I disagree with. But anyway, and a little tiny, fertilized egg zygote doesn't have, I would be, I'm the weirdest person. I would be laughed off the debate stage with Charlie. I'd have to keep my debates within a certain framework of normalness, which is why you invite me on and he does not. You allow my tree love.
Yoda
Sorry.
Yoda 7104 says man is apparently a proud species. It's not a proud sentientist. Remember, I said that the squirrels that make their nests in the tree, they have rights, but I'm not convinced.
But Ben, what about all of the what about those new documentaries about the trees and how they are totally interconnected and they do kind of communicate with each other and try to protect each other when there's a virus or a fungus or something that's going to kill them. It's a thing. It's out there.
Yeah, it's out. I mean, it's a thing that people say. I'm not convinced.
I mean, there is some science behind it. Like the chemical communication.
I think that in a very metaphorical sense, but I don't think that that's the same as saying that the tree can actually experience emotions, or that the tree can. The tree has thoughts or is actually trying to do anything. I mean, like
Ben, you need to take some ayahuasca. Not. Okay, we'll move on. We don't have to.
I will do some experiments on this. Go out to the desert. Take some ayahuasca.
There's no trees out there though. You need to be in the forest.
The scene from the Oliver Stone Doors movie, where everybody's like dancing around, and as he's coming up with the Lizard King lyrics. We'll try that experiment, see if that brings me around on trees or cacti or whatever they have. But
cacti, yeah. I can't speak for cacti.
Can't speak for cacti.
So I draw the line.
Fair enough. But if you
aren't I a weird one? I feel like everything's alive and things are live, but you should still be able to have an abortion. It's a weird stance that might not be, it doesn't have to fall into complete rationality here. But anyway, you'll never have me on again.
Last time. I mean, I think. I think.
But back to the finer points of the debate. We can get back to.
So I should.
Well, it does have a point. You're making good points. Like life has to have will and a reason and choice and that kind of stuff. And that's the cutoff between sort of certain types of life and other types of life. And that's, it does line up with kind of, well, when does this child have a choice? It doesn't really have choice, until.
Yeah. So. And the other thing is, even if you do think that none of that stuff matters, and that a fetus is morally, just the same as a 27-year-old person, then even if you think that, then that doesn't get you to abortion is wrong. Never mind, abortion should be illegal. That only gets you to, even if that's true, that would only be that now we have two rights that are in conflict. There's the mother's right to control her own body, and the fetus's, for the sake of argument, right to life. And it still seems like if you want to say that the fetus's right to life wins, you still have a lot of work ahead of you before you're going to get to that point. But let's go back to this. Got a lot to get through.
that's great, and there's a lot that say yes, and it happens, and you're aware it happens. So try not to use a distracting statistic. You're okay with it in those rare instances. Why?
Because there could be other children in the future that
right.
could be born.
That's my whole argument.
However,
if a woman's not ready to have a child now, there could be other children in the future when they are ready to raise them successfully in life.
I will correct my own previous statement by saying I don't even think it's ever medically necessary, because these 1,000 OBGYNs and nurses have said you can have cesarean sections. That's not to say there might not be necessary medical treatments, but to use abortion as the medical necessary treatment, I think is almost never the case whatsoever. Case closed.
Oh!
Case closed?
Well, I'm going to trust the 1,000 OBGYNs.
You say it's hard to pinpoint and it's rare, but
do
it
not
happens.
trust the 1,000 OBGYNs.
I don't know who they are.
Also, the 1,000 OBGYNs he quoted didn't even say never. They said very rarely. But
also, a cesarean section is a very dangerous. I mean, they do them every 5 seconds, but it's a very big surgery. They actually take your insides out of your body and then put them back in. And they say to you, "Hey, if you can go to the bathroom in the next 24 hours, let us know. Otherwise, you'll be back here in the emergency room. Okay? Have a nice baby." You know, it's a major surgery that a woman has to go through if that's necessary. It's not just like they can have a cesarean. Oh, it's just very inhumane way of thinking, misogynistic way of thinking.
OBGYNs out there.
Yeah.
The 1,000 say you're right.
And the 100 million others say that I'm right.
Let me ask you a question. You retweet Planned Parenthood quite a lot.
Sure.
What do you have to say about the Planned Parenthood founder, Margaret Sanger, who's a eugenicist?
oh my God, Margaret
Because
Sanger.
we don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the black population. Does that bother that Planned Parenthood is a eugenicist organization?
I've never heard that quote.
How about this one?
I
How
doubt
about
the authenticity of that quote, but if it's true, I obviously condemn that quote.
how about this one from
don't support it.
Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger? Human beings, our goal is to eliminate human beings who never should have been born at all. Or birth control is nothing more or less weeding out the unfit. Are you comfortable associating yourself with eugenicists?
I'm not comfortable associating myself with eugenicists or that quote, if that answers your question.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, because
Awesome.
I got plenty for you.
Awesome. How many children do you have?
None yet.
Why?
Well, I got married in May, so it's a work in progress.
So you're working on having kids soon. Why haven't you adopted yet? Are you going to adopt kids
Well, I've
that
been
are in
married-
need of help?
So I do kind of live a busy life. But
We
I
all
would love
live
to
busy
adopt.
lives.
Actually, it's on the table.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome. So Charlie's going to adopt soon. Excellent.
potentially.
At 8 weeks, we have tails. At 8 weeks, embryo has tails. Do humans
Awesome.
have tails, Charlie?
I'm sorry, what?
Serious question. Do human beings have tails?
I'm not exactly sure the essence of the
Do
question.
human beings have tails? Do you have a tail?
You know, I have never met anyone with a tail. I'm not exactly sure the essence.
Exactly. But fetuses have tails. Kind of proves that at that phase, they are not a human being. They got tails. Humans don't have tails. We're not dinosaurs. Let me even show you a photo, if I may, okay? Do you truly, in your heart of hearts,
There we go.
truly believe that this is a human being? This,
Without a doubt.
without a doubt,
Yes.
this is a dolphin fetus.
So let me.
Without a doubt, a dolphin fetus is a human being. This is a human fetus. Look how similar they look, but quite different. Dolphin. You just confirmed that a dolphin, in life, you confuse dolphins for human babies often.
So let me
You
ask
go to
you a question.
SeaWorld and you're like, someone's got human babies in that aquarium. Get the human babies out of the aquarium.
You labeled it as a human fetus.
No,
so
I
you
did
that
not.
Dishonestly.
No, I did not. I didn't label it as anything.
Let me. But you.
Doesn't say human fetus on there.
Let me ask you a question though. So let's hold up those two pictures again.
Sure.
Is there a moral difference between the dolphin and the baby?
At this stage, no.
No.
You just confirmed that.
Let me ask you: human and a dolphin. Is it okay to kill one and not the other? Is there a difference morally between a human and a dolphin?
I mean, I don't like to kill dolphins, but if
No.
Do
they're
you like,
li-
do you like to kill babies?
no, I don't. And when they're living, I certainly am not in favor
Wait,
of killing
so
either.
let-
but obviously, I protect a human
hold
over
up,
a dolphin.
Hold up the human one.
Sure.
Is that not alive?
No, it is not alive.
Well, then, how is it able to have a heartbeat?
It's attached to an alive being called a woman.
Wait,
Who's
so
the
it
mother?
doesn't have a heartbeat, does it?
No, it doesn't have a true heartbeat.
Oh, yes, it
At
does.
some point, it does.
22 days after conception, the child's heart begins to circulate. Not alive.
That is also disputed science and
At
not
just
correct.
6 weeks, the child's eyes and eyelids, nose and mouth and tongue have formed. Not
no,
alive.
no, it is not a heartbeat at 22 weeks.
So wait, hold on. It's either dead or alive. Which one is it?
That is not true. It is becoming.
That's
Pick
not
one.
true.
It's dead currently.
Oh, it's such
alive.
a weird.
It is not alive.
So you were once dead.
You
before
defined
were
life
alive?
as distinct. It's not distinct. It's attached
It's
to
totally
somebody
distinct.
feeding it. Distinct means on its own.
No,
is
it
it not
doesn't.
attached to its mother?
That's a different. That's autonomous.
Distinct is the same.
Distinct means it has its own DNA, its own composition.
That's the definition of the word distinct, is its own DNA and composition.
I'm going to make up my own definitions.
So is sperm, and so is eggs, and so is everything. Dolphins are unique. That doesn't mean you can or can't kill them or put them in aquariums.
There's 1 million abortions every single year. Do you think that's too many or not enough?
I think it's whatever the mother decides with her own family is the right move for their life, and it's none of our damn business.
So if a mother murders an 18-month-old, is that okay?
No, it's not the human being. It's an autonomous.
So it becomes a human being the moment it comes out of the womb.
Right.
So what do you say about now the youngest pregnancy ever done, 22 weeks and 1 day? That baby is now 1 year old. Was that not a human being when it was delivered by C-section?
I don't follow. Say that again.
So last year, the youngest ever human being on record was delivered at 22 weeks and 1 day. That baby is now 1 year old since the time of that birth.
This is now a living baby. You're correct.
That's okay. So as soon as it comes out of the womb, it is living.
That is correct. If it's alive when it comes out of the womb, we don't know, right? A lot of
Please.
babies die at childbirth. That's why you don't know until
not a lot
born.
of babies die at childbirth.
Yeah, a lot.
Very, very
a
low
lot.
percentage.
Can someone Google that for me, please? Can you please Google how many babies die at childbirth every year?
We have some of the lowest childbirth mortality rates in the
No,
world.
That's not true.
We have some of the highest.
That is not true.
Some of the highest. United States infant
Thank you very
mortality
much.
rate places us 16th among the nations of the world.
How many nations
Thousands
are
of
there,
infants die each year because of
lot.
inadequate medical care that you often vote against and don't support.
I'm not elected official.
But you support things and
I
you
vote
have the influence of millions. You don't have a vote? Are you suppressing your own vote now too, or just others?
Aha! Good one.
I'm saying that you vote in elections and you decide who goes to Congress, do you not? And do you not support bills or not support bills based on your massive influence?
I know you're getting really worked up.
No, I'm not.
So let me ask you a question.
Also, ranked 33 out of 36 in the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development Nations, OECD nations, ranked by U.S. News and World Report for prenatal and early childhood care, that you often do not support. In fact, recently, when Biden suggested just $225 billion to support children more in the early years of their lives, you went against it and said, oh, capping it, while theoretically, you paid empty lip service to it and said, well, theoretically, it's a good idea. $225 billion is so expensive, and it caps the amount they can spend on their children at 7% of income a year. And by doing that, there's no incentives then for them to seek cost-effective care. When you had no problem with Donald Trump spending $8 trillion, giving trillions and trillions of tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires, and raising the national debt to $27 trillion.
Can I be
no
honest,
issue
Leslie?
with that. But helping the kids that you care about so much, the babies
So-
you care about so much, that you want to force women to give birth to them, and then they can go themselves once they're born because you don't give a shit. And
Yay.
you vote against it constantly. Bravo!
Can I be
What a
honest?
hill to die on.
I have no idea what the heck you're talking
You don't? Well, you've been on
Awesome.
the record about it. That's pretty incredible.
Oh.
You don't know what I'm
Go
talking
find
about.
one of your note cards.
I got a lot of cards.
Let's talk about the Holocaust that's happening in our country. So for
Say
you,
Holocaust again, you're gonna have a problem with me because again,
Well,
my family died in that.
then
Remember?
let's dive right into that. So there's a Holocaust happening in our country of 1 million abortions a year of our
That's
fellow
your words.
countrymen
That's your
being
offensive
slaughtered.
words.
So the Holocaust that's occurring, administered by Planned Parenthood, has a disproportionate impact in the Black community. In Texas, 70% of all abortions are minorities, and 37% of all abortions are Blacks. Why are you okay with that?
Why are you okay with dictating what the Black community should do? Now Charlie Kirk should decide what the Black community does?
Actually, I want more Black people. Do you want less?
You
or more
should
Black
tell
people?
them how many babies they should have?
I want to protect
I
all
want-
Black babies.
I
So
want,
let's-
except with funding.
So here's the
except
record.
with helping
You-
them have easier
You
lives.
want less
or
Black
helping
children?
lift.
I want more Black children.
No,
that
no,
would
no.
be a
Oh my God.
racist position.
Oh no, you're the racist position. I want the exact number of Black children that the Black communities decide that they want and Black mothers decide they want to give birth to, and not force them to do so, and especially not force them to do so and then not provide any of the funding necessary to lift them up out of oftentimes poverty situations. Oftentimes you are forcing people to not only then give birth to babies they don't want, but then you're sliding them further into poverty. It costs about $1 million over the course of a lifetime of a child to raise a child. And it's easy for you to say you're a trust fund baby who was born rich. It's easy for you to say when you've never had to struggle for money. These people are born in difficult circumstances. They get pregnant accidentally or at the hands of an abuser, the hands of a rapist, the hands of a mistake when they were 16. Maybe it's their third child and their husband and them had sex and accidentally got pregnant, and you're forcing them to have it and sticking them further and further in poverty with no effort and no funding to help lift them out of that. But you care so much about babies that you think are dolphins.
So what percentage of abortions are rape? that are attributed to rape.
Do you not think rape exists?
I do. What percentage of abortions are attributed to
I
rape?
don't know, but any of them is too
No,
many.
Since you're a subject matter expert,
Any pregnancy
what,
due to
what
rape is
percentage
too
of
many.
abortions are attributable to rape?
I don't know the answer to that.
What is
But
the number one reason given for abortion in America?
Money.
Did you know that 1 in 4,
Answer the question.
the number one reason given for
Money.
Abortion.
is they are not ready to have a child and can't do it.
So you're okay. I just want to make sure the moral position.
Uh-huh.
Not a child unless it's born, even though it can feel, even though it can breathe, even though it has a heartbeat.
Can't
has
feel
eyelids.
and can't breathe.
No, we already went through this. All right.
We did.
So
Can't feel and can't
you're
breathe.
entitled to your own opinion, not to your own facts.
Correct. You too.
You are taking the anti-science position
No.
that from as early as 12 weeks and certainly by 20 weeks, an unborn child can feel pain. And by 10 weeks after conception, the child can make bodily movements. Electrical brain activity could be detected to 6 or 7 weeks.
I've never denied they are not growing into becoming human beings.
But what percentage of abortions do you think are attributable when people say, I got it because I was raped? What percentage?
I bet it's a pretty low percentage.
Yes, less than 1%.
Yes, but that's 1 out of 100.
So most are abortions out of convenience.
But convenience is a word you use to frame it as somebody being irresponsible. Not being ready to bring a child into this world is not convenience. It's smart family planning that you are against. You're against Planned Parenthood. You're for forced parenthood. You're not for.
Let me ask you a question.
You're not for life. You're for forced birth.
The rape question aside.
Wait, why the rape question aside?
Because it's such a small percentage.
No, but the legislation. You keep taking these slices that you don't want to deal with and throwing them away.
Since you did some images, let me ask you.
Hold on, one second. So when a child is born or when a child is going to be born and risks the life of the mother, you say that's so rare it doesn't count. When someone is raped, that's so rare it doesn't count. 1 in 100 times though happens.
Well,
so
it certainly counts. I'm just asking.
Why do you not push for legislation that has exceptions for rape and incest? Why?
Well, because it's just equal to human life, and I'll prove it to you. So
it's equal to human life?
So which one of these, I have 2 pictures.
Yep.
One of these babies was conceived in rape. One of these babies was conceived in a consensual relationship. Which one's which?
You know why? Obviously, I don't know the answer to that.
Because they're both human beings.
No, because I wasn't involved in the traumatic life experience of the mother that one of them resulted in rape and one didn't.
So one of these
babies. Every time you speak about abortion, you always skip over the mother who gives life to that baby and raises and gestates
about it right
that baby.
Now. Which one of these babies was formed in a consensual
Show us the picture of the mother post-rape.
Ew.
Which
one of these babies was born in a consensual relationship? Which one was born over the incredibly traumatic, mind-numbing, horrible, horrific experience of having to carry to term the child of your rapist, of your daughter watching at home's rapist that he wants to force anybody have a pro-birth, forced birth opinion will make you carry to term and be the mother of a rapist
can't
baby.
Tell the difference
be cast out of your
because
social
they're
circles.
Both human beings that deserve to be able to live.
And you skip over the care and the trauma of the human being of the
talk
mother.
Let's talk about
Why
the
do you
care.
not care about the mother?
I do care about the mother. I care about the mother so much.
0% you care
that
about the mother.
I want to talk about this. So let's talk about adoption. How many families?
I handle my cards pretty good.
How many families do you think are waiting for children right now to adopt in America?
Charlie, you're aware that there are far more
ballpark.
There are far more babies in foster homes and in the foster program and in orphanages.
Just take a guess.
There's not enough.
Guess.
There's not enough.
Guess.
Guess what?
How many families are waiting to adopt right now in America on waiting lists?
I don't know the answer.
Just guess a little bit.
1 million.
2 million.
Okay. And
how many abortions are there every single year?
Your point is what?
Guess.
Your point is what?
Just take a guess.
Your point is what? Let's say it's exactly 2 million. I bet is what you got you. Okay,
so there's twice as many families waiting to adopt than we terminate children every single year.
And you're aware there are also children who are in the adoptive care system that cannot get adopted, right? Are you aware of that fact?
Why do you think they're in the adoptive care system and the foster care system?
Because a lot of people are forced through restrictive abortion laws that people like you
bureaucracy
force on people who don't
and red tape. So we should make it easier to adopt. Do you agree?
Sure.
Okay, so we agree. So therefore, if we get rid of abortion, we have enough families waiting to adopt, and every child will be taken care of.
And yet again,
we have solved the abortion issue, everybody,
because
and Ben agrees.
No, because
enough families to adopt.
No,
all the abortions
Because
would go
look-
away, and everyone gets a
Because
loving
look how well
parent.
you
And Ben would have to go
Look-
back to obsessing about sperm.
look how well you again skipped right over the mother. You refuse to talk about the mother or the experience of giving birth because you don't know what it's
Wait,
like,
hold
nor
on.
do I.
Let's take.
You
Let's
skipped
take.
right over it.
let's
So
take
your
rape
argument
aside.
is let's make everyone who's raped, force them to have a baby, go through that trauma, and then the trauma of giving up the baby for adoption, just so people can have a baby that don't currently have one. How about also not traumatizing women and respecting the autonomy of women? Why is it that you are in favor of limited government in every way, as small of government as possible, except in the uterus of women?
So if it's not your
You're
DNA,
against
why is it your
government
choice?
overreach, but not government
If
inner
it's
reach.
not your
You
DNA,
like
Because it is your
government reaching
DNA.
in the uterus and
No.
deciding for a woman what it does.
hilariously, that's you because you want to put the abortionist in the uterus.
No,
by
I
a
want to
force
I want to respect women's choices to make the decisions best for
Actually-
them and their lives.
What I want is to make it illegal for abortionists and the abortion industry to continue to massacre and create a genocide and Holocaust
Killing all
of
the
our
dolphins.
fellow
The
countrymen.
dolphin holocaust must end. You're right. We have to stop it. Charlie Kirk's point, everybody.
See,
He's
Ben,
obsessed with
he
women's
equates
uteruses, and he
dolphins
wants to kill as
with
many
human life.
dolphins as possible.
So Ben, let me ask you a question.
Creepily obsessed with women's
Ugh.
bodies, telling them what they can and can't do, making them give birth, even if they're raped.
So Ben, let me
or it
ask you a
might
question.
Kill them, and he wants to make sure that
Let me
dolphins
ask you a question.
we stop the dolphin genocide.
Let me
Great
ask you a
point.
question. Is abortion ever wrong?
Is abortion ever wrong?
No.
You need to be more specific. I
Well,
don't
maybe
know what
like
that is.
one day before it's going to
I
be
don't know what you
born.
mean by that.
Sure,
Is
that's
it ever wrong to conduct an abortion or facilitate an abortion?
I think, in my, again, personal opinion, if it is towards the end of a term and a child is viable, a potential child is viable on its own outside of the womb, and
It's not gonna kill the
for
mother.
Some serious abnormality that would make the child very likely to not survive long in life or to risk the life of the mother, I think that would be a pretty wrong thing to do. That's my opinion.
Why shouldn't the laws reflect that then?
I'm okay
They do.
personally with the laws reflecting that.
What?
I'm okay personally
Okay,
with
so
the laws
preventing
reflecting that.
late-term abortion.
I'm okay personally, but again, I'm not a woman, so I'm speaking kind of out of turn here, but I personally don't love the idea of a late-term abortion. But you're
That's
against
news.
abortion in any way.
That's correct. Yeah, but I'm just. That's actually news. I didn't realize that was your position.
That's
because,
my personal opinion.
But then,
sure.
like, at what week would you draw that? Because then,
Like
all
I
the,
said, when a child is likely to be viable outside of the womb
so
on
let's
its
say
own.
the third trimester then.
For me personally, I'm personally okay with that. But
I don't know what he means by personally, because he said, like, I thought I knew what he meant because I thought he was saying, well, I personally think it's wrong, and I thought that meant that I don't think it should be illegal. But then there was a point where he said, but I personally think it should be illegal as well. By the time we're talking about laws, it's not personal anymore. I don't understand what that means.
Right. Also, I would like to make the point that Charlie held up the picture of two babies, and it would have been awesome if someone else, Ben or whatever, had said or had brought a picture of, this is going to be hard to get. You could stage it, I guess, of, what the mother looked like post-conception of the rape, during rape, and what the mother looked like post-conception of a consensual trying for a kid kind of situation. There's a big difference.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's also it's such a weird argument. Like, you can't tell the difference between these two pictures. Therefore, it doesn't make a difference whether the fetus that you're forcing somebody to carry to term, is there rapists, feed like it just. Like, that's such a weird leap. Like there are lots of like you can't tell the difference between, look, you can show me a picture of somebody with cancer and somebody without cancer, and if we haven't gotten to the chemo stage yet, I probably can't tell the difference. But I don't know what that's supposed to prove.
Yeah, it's so reductionistic, and then they do this. He's doing this thing where he reduces the argument down to something convenient, and then he blows it back up to like, I love babies. And meaning you don't love babies, but I haven't watched a lot of time.
He did completely ignore all the stuff that Ben said about about support for children after they were already born, because obviously
and he didn't. I don't understand why God, I wish I was there to be like, Ben, stop talking and say, could you please answer my questions? This isn't a debate. if you're not answering my questions. It's such an uneven footing because it's Charlie's show,
Right.
you know, and he's asking all the questions. It's really more of an on-the-spot interview with the occasional. It's not a debate. I think a debate would be a moderated debate by someone who's just there to moderate and who's not. It's not their show. You know, it's tough.
Well, so especially like the way that I think even more so with this one because he's not just like asking a question, then they talk about it for a while, then they talk about something else. He's like interrogating him, you know, like that's a, you know, there's a big difference between we're having a discussion and I'm going to ask a question and then we talk about it for 5 minutes and then maybe like I ask a question or maybe you get in another question or whatever, like, and so no, answer the question, go back. No, you know, well then what happens? Well, Charlie, I don't see what, no, you tell me the number, you know, it's like he's giving him a pop quiz about like the number of parents who, you know, adoptive, like, and it's so weird too, because it's like, I don't, you know, like you're going to do the pop quiz about the facts. Like it seems like if you're going to do the pop quiz, you got to get rid of the binder. I mean, like that's not like at the very least show that you, at the very least, like if you're going to give somebody the pop quiz and like make a big point about how they should know it, you know, like you shouldn't have something on your lap that tells you all this stuff.
Also, that argument itself is totally it's disingenuine. Just because there are people who want to adopt does not mean we should make abortion illegal. And just they don't. Yeah, it doesn't. Like, it doesn't equate. It doesn't equate.
Yeah, I mean that. Right, like is the like what you should be forced to carry a fetus to term for the sake of would-be adoptive parents.
Right. I don't think people who are like, oh, I should carry this baby to term and then I'll just leave it in a dumpster at the firehouse. You know, I don't think people, as far as I can tell, women know that if they want to have the child and put it up for adoption, it's not hard for the woman to do at this point. You know, it's more hard for the family to get their, you know, hands on the child because a lot of people are making money off of that system. So you want to make it easier, you have to take the financial incentive out of it for different agencies. I have some friends involved in this, and we've had a lot of conversations. It doesn't line up. People want to adopt, and these people are having abortions. Well, why does it mean that? It's, you know, it's still based on this idea that we should have as many babies as possible, which I also think, you know, as many babies as can be conceived should be allowed loosed into the world, which is another whole area for conversation.
No, for sure. But it's also, before I forget, also earlier, he said something super weird about how the options are that a fetus is either alive or it's dead.
Oh yeah,
right? Like that, and it's like
not true.
No, not at all true. Again, I'm fine with saying a fetus is alive. The life is not what matters here. But like, also that's a terrible premise. That's just wrong. Like something could be like, you know, a rock isn't dead. Right? It's not alive, but it's not dead.
Right.
You know, there are, you know, like dead is a word that we use for things that used to be alive and aren't alive anymore.
It takes us back to our tree argument. Okay, a tree is alive, but you wouldn't care if a woman was like, you know, this isn't going to work out, and I don't have the capacity to grow this tree. You know,
yeah, right.
It wouldn't be an issue for some inscrutable reason. You know, yeah. Back to self-determination, like, does that child actually have self-determination? And if it does have electrical signaling in the brain, does that still mean it has self-determination? You know, or is it just playing out its, like, you know, physical roadmap?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, let's watch some more.
Do we have to? No, I'm just kidding.
You know, since you love throwing stats at me, that less than 1% of cases is it a third trimester abortion, and those cases are almost always when it is the life of the mother or serious abnormalities that the child would not survive.
So if it's
in
less
which
than,
case I'm not against
if
it.
it's less than 1%, then we should be able to abolish it. And now the Texas law, which you have committed a critic
That's a
of,
weird leap.
is at 6 weeks. 6 weeks, which we've already stated the facts. At 6 weeks, the child's eyes, eyelids, nose, mouth, and tongue are formed. That sounds like a human being, not a dolphin.
No, the shape of them. They're still webbed. They're still sitting there. I don't know how
So-
boring your life has been,
so let me
but
ask you a
life
question.
is not this. Sitting in gel, floating. That's not life. Life's out in the
So
world.
let me ask you a question.
Life's out in the world.
Over 500,
Maybe this is why you go home and you just chill at home like,
over 500,000 people are currently hooked up to a machine and comatose. According to you, being a webbed person or being somewhat non-human is okay. Should we just pull the plug of all of them?
No, because developed living.
I'm sure they would prefer it.
And ones by your own terms are not living. Let me quote you yet again. You said on your YouTube, quote, Planned Parenthood conducts 300,000 abortions a year.
Yes.
That is
300,000 murders.
And then the second part of the sentence, that is 300,000 lives that never had a chance to exist. By your own words.
You know what I mean by that.
No, I
to
don't. By
fully
your
exist.
own words, you said embryos and fetuses do not exist. It's your words. It never had a chance to exist.
That is a sloppy,
no,
dishonest,
it's a perfect argument.
low IQ argument.
You think
so let me
that
add on to
they're
that. To be able
Low
to fully
IQ.
exist like you and I have.
the
You
phase,
know that's
no,
dishonest.
that's not true, sir.
You know that's
Charlie,
low IQ.
the phase that
you know that's sloppy. So let me ask you a question.
I'm speaking of the phase that you think is
Let
the
me ask
same as
you-
a dolphin.
Let me ask you a
And
question.
you are saying that I can't tell if it's a dolphin or not, but I must protect it. But then you also say a fetus does not exist, never has a chance to exist. It has not lived yet. You're 27, not 28. You said it yourself.
Let me continue on
But for
with
your
that
28th
argument.
birthday, I will take you to SeaWorld and we can look at the dolphins and be sad about it.
Happy to have another 9 months onto my
Please
birthday,
do
which
that.
is a really bizarre argument. But
An
let's
amazing argument. You know that.
let's
You're
say
even
we take
changing
it.
your birthday for it.
let's say you were right.
Thank you.
So for a second,
We've
do you
just
ever
decided it. I'm
for,
right.
for a second,
And that's the
do you
debate.
ever doubt that 62 million abortions is something that we should be worried about, something that's wrong with, that all the, let's just use the racial thing, which you tend to always try to incite, all the black babies that were never born, all the Hispanic babies that were never born, does that ever bother you?
Does it ever bother you that you still, despite me making this point already, are trying to dictate for these communities of color what they
Let me
should
be
do
very
with their
clear.
families?
Let me-
And then once you force them to have this baby, you don't help them at all.
Okay, let's talk. We'll talk about both of them. Number one,
Sure.
I will, with every ounce of my being, intervene to dictate that babies are allowed to live. You seem indifferent to that, and
No, you were
jokingly
okay with,
compare babies and dolphins. That's fine. That's okay.
you compared them.
And
You
so,
said they were 100%
no,
in
because
real life.
you dishonestly put up both
No,
pictures. That's
I
fine.
proved a point perfectly.
I would expect.
Okay,
the
wait.
same
I have to
from
say something, Ben.
a B-rate comic
you did the
like you.
same kind.
But
You're a
let me-
B-rate commentator.
Okay, so there's also a point, that an assumption, an underlying assumption that I'm seeing here, which is that once the baby comes out, if it's unwanted by its mother, babies will die if they're unwanted by the mother in the wild. Someone else will probably take care of them now. But he's like, I will defend babies until they are born. So I will make women who don't want babies have babies. So I will defend them until they come out. And then what? It's. I don't know if I'm making my point clearly, but something just really struck me about the unwanted. If you have a child that you don't want, that's defending babies should not stop at the labia of the birth canal. Defending babies. If you want to force a woman legally to have to carry any child conceived to term, then you should be responsible. I mean, this anti-abortion stuff is really anti-sex. Just don't fuck. Excuse me. Can we swear? I hope we can swear.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, don't make love even. Don't do anything. And if you do, like, men just walk away. And they're like, I'm having why is that not illegal? Why, if you can make a child, why is it that, the only legality is protecting the ability of the fetus to come to term, not anything else. And that to me seems just so unfair and it's just disingenuous.
Yeah. All right. Let's watch.
You did the same exact thing with your
let
photos.
me continue by saying, which you couldn't
You
tell
did
the
the
difference.
same thing with your photos.
He couldn't tell the difference between a human being conceived in rape
Yes,
or in a consensual
that
relationship.
proves my point better,
So
Charlie.
let me ask you a question.
Charlie, I couldn't tell the difference because
And so,
exactly
let me ask
fetuses are
you a
not
question.
distinct special beings until they are born.
Let me ask you a
That's
question.
why you can't tell the difference between
If it's
raped
not your
fetuses
DNA,
and consensual fetuses or
it's not-
dolphin fetuses or human fetuses.
if it's not your
you
DNA,
proved my point twice.
if it's not your DNA, why should it be your
Ugh.
choice?
Exactly. It's not your DNA. So why are you choosing for these women?
It's not the DNA of the baby, Ben.
No, it is half the DNA of the mother and half of the father.
So should the father have a say?
I think the father should be able to consult with the mother if the mother so chooses.
Should the father override an abortion?
You just said, Charlie, of course not. He should not be able to override it. It's the mother's choice. She's
I thought you said
carrying
it's
the
half
baby.
the father.
It's half his DNA, so he should be consulted. That would be nice.
You know,
Doesn't have to.
most states it's illegal. It's not legal to do it.
Not legal to consult a father? Of course
No, you
it's
don't
legal.
have to consult it by law.
Fine, because it's the woman
So,
carrying
but if
it.
it's not
But
your
you
DNA,
just said if it's
so-
not your DNA, you shouldn't have a say.
That's right. So the mother and the father, it's not their DNA anymore.
So
'cause
why
your
do
DNA
you
is
have a
formed.
say in babies of which you have none of the DNA?
Well, it's like saying,
Why do you have a say
why do we have
in
say
the
in
babies?
murder laws and theft laws, rape laws and arson laws?
Because those are to protect human beings,
which begins
are
at
living.
conception,
in your opinion.
in the opinion of
Because
embryology.
you
and
happen to be
science.
an evangelical. You happen to be a Catholic, correct?
Not even close.
You're not
He's
a
an
Catholic.
evangelical
You're
Christian.
You're an evangelical Christian. What are you?
Yeah,
Evangelical Christian.
Evangelical Christian.
Okay, and
And you're a B-rate comic, right?
you're a C-rate
Oh, what an
political
asshole.
hack. What's your
How
point?
did your Netflix
We
show
can throw
do?
names all we like. It was trending on Netflix for 2 years. Have you ever been on Netflix? You should go for it. It's one of the top platforms out there in the
I
world.
heard they took it off.
Yeah, they did. After 2 years, they took it off. Great point. You ever been on Netflix?
I wouldn't
I
want
also
it.
got a show dropping on Disney Plus soon, so please check that out.
My goodness, they couldn't pay me to be on that awful platform.
Yeah, I know. I would not have you on a family-friendly platform. That's for sure. With your obsession with women's beauty, it's probably
I
strongly
Awesome.
make sure that doesn't happen.
I want to see
But
as
so-
many babies live as possible.
Your religious beliefs inform your opinions on
course.
abortion. Yes, but
However,
mine
I
inform
haven't,
mine.
I haven't made one religious argument this entire time.
Sure, but all I'm saying is you keep saying that life begins at conception. That's an idea you have informed by your religious beliefs.
Then
Judaism says life begins with the first breath.
No, it does not.
Yes, it does.
That is a misinterpretation of the text
Judaism-
of Exodus. Let me ask
Judaism
you.
gives preference to the woman, not the unborn fetus.
You want to talk about the Torah?
And that's my religion.
So what does it say in Jeremiah? I knew you before what?
I have no idea.
You were in the womb.
Uh-huh.
What does it say in Leviticus about unborn
Oh,
children?
wow. Somebody wrote that I knew you before you're in the room.
Yes, somebody
Listen.
called Jeremiah, a minor character in the Bible.
The Bible's beautiful, but it's allegories. So if you're going to take
Thank
the
you.
specific words and say it's some kind of scientific book, it's not a scientific book. It's a good moral
no, it's
guide
the word of God. Ben.
in your opinion. But you can't enforce your religious opinion on the world. That's why we,
well,
on the
I'm
country
not.
especially.
I've been making secular arguments.
Sure.
So if you, I'm just asking, as someone who says you were offended by the Holocaust, where millions of Jews were killed, why are you seemingly indifferent with the millions of Americans that are being killed?
Because they're not Americans. You have to be born on U.S. soil to be an American. Again, you prove my point.
No,
Thank you.
human beings.
The definition of an American is being born on U.S. soil. Born.
So
Born or naturalized.
let me
So
let me
no
ask you-
Americans are killed every year
Let me ask
through
you a
abortion.
question.
Thank you.
The
Another
Black-
point
the Black
in my
Panthers.
column. Love
The
it.
Black Panthers said, which I disagree with the Black Panthers on a lot, but they said that abortion is a black genocide on the community.
Good for them.
Were there a lot
Are
of
they wrong?
female Black Panthers?
Of course not. I've been arguing this whole time. It is not a genocide. Genocides are genocides, and genocides take place of humans, not of undeveloped,
but again,
still developing fetuses that will become humans
but what
that you think are dolphins.
What species is a fetus on the animal kingdom hierarchy?
It is.
Homo sapien or no?
It is a part of a woman human being
No,
that
no.
is growing.
What species?
Is a woman?
Fetus.
A woman is
A-
a human being.
A fetus. What species is it?
It will become a Homo sapien
So it's not current. When does
Correct.
that species change?
at birth. How hard is this concept?
So wait.
we
So
keep
hold on a
saying
second.
birth.
So you're making an argument
Yeah.
that all of a sudden the baby goes through metamorphosis of a species change? That's a unique and very bizarre.
Oh no, I
argument.
never said species change. I said it's becoming a full, living, breathing.
So,
Homo
but what is it
sapien
before?
when
So,
birth
what
happens.
species is a fetus? You got to organize it somewhere on the animal kingdom. Where is it? What is it?
Homo sapien
Oh, so
parts.
it's a human.
Homo sapien parts.
You just admitted it's a
no.
human being.
And what species is sperm?
It's
what
neither,
species is
it's
egg?
neither human nor anything.
What species is the egg from a
It's an
woman?
undeveloped part of a male or undeveloped
Exactly.
part of a
and
female.
and a fetus is an undeveloped baby.
No, it's very much developed.
No, it's not. It's developing the whole time until birth. That's the whole process.
New DNA is formed.
New DNA is formed the whole time up until birth.
No. The new DNA is formed right at that moment.
No.
Yes, it is. The new DNA is the sperm and egg meet. That's called conception.
Yep.
And the science
Yep.
of embryology say
Yep.
that is a human life.
Yep. And each
that is
egg
worthy
that
of
drops is
protection.
unique DNA in that egg, and there's unique DNA in the millions and millions of sperm that goes and fertilizes that egg.
And we said, what happens to an unfertilized egg?
The sperm dies, and what happens to a pregnancy that doesn't go to term? It dies. Your point is what?
That it's a human life.
No.
That it develops.
But you didn't prove that point. You can just judge it.
Uninterrupted from an abortionist intervention.
No, there's miscarriages all the time.
Of course, that doesn't make it not a life.
So when a miscarriage happens, is
That's
the
a
woman
life
a
that should be
murderer?
grieved.
Is
No,
a woman a murderer?
Of course not. That happens through many different sorts. There could be chemical pregnancies,
Honest
but
question.
that is a
Honest
life.
question. Honest question. Do you have any friends who've ever had an abortion?
Yes,
Okay.
and I grieve for them
You grieve for them.
because they were taken advantage of by people like you and the abortion industry.
Right. They were taken advantage of. That's how they feel.
Oh yeah, we're making a lot of money.
I feel many of them. By the way, if you want to talk about the mental health costs,
Abortion
that women
industrial
have after
complex.
abortion, I'm happy to talk about how most women regret having abortions, about how they have
Not true.
psychological damage, social damage, spiritual damage,
That is
that they wish they could take it back.
That is a BS talking point. It
No,
is
it's
very
actually a
sad. It is
scientific
very,
fact
It's
that
sadness
abortion
is a
is
scientific
actually
fact.
terrible for the women, for the
No,
woman.
No.
long
Unsafe
term.
abortion is terrible. Abortions are very, very safe and are very healthy to do. And in fact, for any woman watching this that is being forced to not consider an abortion as an option if they are not ready to have a child because maybe their husband or their partner or their parents are not allowing them to do so, please know you can get pills online from other countries, even if you have to, that can do a safe, painless, easy at-home abortion, and you will not have to deal with any problems health-wise, and you're going to be all good. So know that option's out there for you.
I got to be honest.
Please keep that
your
in mind.
ease of which advocating murder scares
You
me.
keep saying murder, and you also think fetuses are dolphins, so you don't ever take in a point that you already lost and adjust your
let me be
opinion,
clear.
which is
Your main
unfortunate.
argument you keep on resorting back to is you have two pictures of a human being and a dolphin
That's
that
not my
look
main
similar,
argument.
and you think as if that's some sort of
Your
big
own
argument.
words is that embryos haven't had a chance to exist yet, that fetuses haven't existed yet. Your own
Existed
words.
the way you and I have. Yes.
Right.
So now
Right.
you are
In the world,
workshopping
alive.
something I said on a radio show and YouTube channel.
No,
Got it.
alive. Your
Okay.
own YouTube channel.
So
Your own YouTube channel.
let me ask you a question here, which is, what is a human being?
A living, breathing, out in the world entity. Let me ask you a question. What is a mother? The thing you keep not wanting to talk about.
A mother is a woman who has a sperm and egg fertilized, and human life has begun.
And does she have autonomy to make her own decisions? Do you think she's a full human being? That's
Well, this is
respectful?
where you stepped in it.
You think
If it's
think
not her,
fetuses,
if it's not her DNA, it's not her choice. That's a
You-
moral argument.
it is her DNA.
But her body is her
It's
DNA.
body, and it's her body.
It's not her DNA. It's new DNA has formed
Uh-huh.
of a new being, and as soon as that new being is created, she does not have, in my opinion, the legal. Well, she currently has the legal authority in some states,
Correct.
unfortunately.
Legal authority and constitutionally
the
protected
moral-
authority. You like the Constitution, don't you?
Wait,
You care about it?
Where in the Constitution does it protect
The
abortion?
14th Amendment and the 5th Amendment.
What does the 14th Amendment say?
The 14th Amendment,
Where does it say the word abortion?
it protects your liberty.
Where does it say the word
And there
abortion?
cannot be infringements in the due process clause to your liberty and to your
So-
right to privacy.
let me ask you a
and the
question.
government should not go into your body. Why are there no rules or laws that affect a man's body? What if we said, here's how we're going to reduce abortion, Charlie, is every man, including you, Charlie Kirk, newly married, has to get a vasectomy. It can be reversed when you're ready to have a baby. Would you be okay with it?
No, because it doesn't involve
No.
a certain human life. Let me ask you a question.
What do you mean?
So-
No, it does,
so-
because
so you want-
you're saying men are not
you want to
responsible at all
protect-
for unwanted
So,
pregnancies.
so you believe women?
You're saying men
you
are
be-
not responsible at all for unwanted pregnancies.
Hold on, I don't.
Are
even-
you-
I don't
are you-
under-
are
I
you
don't
not?
understand where
That's
you're
a
going with this
question.
argument. Say that again.
Are men responsible at all for unwanted pregnancy, or is it just the woman's fault?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Right. So then shouldn't the laws also enforce something on them then, if this is such an epidemic that you call it genocide?
No, because you have a new being that is created.
Uh-huh.
So we should allow women
so
to
they're
make
just
decisions.
empty vessels then.
So men
Fuck.
should not be involved in making decisions for women's health care, right?
Correct.
So then you think Roe versus Wade is a mistake because it was 7 men that made that decision. So we should repeal
That
Roe
doesn't
versus
make
Wade.
Oh,
men
God.
should dare
Sorry,
make decisions
Ben.
for women.
No.
You
Because
advocate
unlike
for the
you-
repealing of Roe
No,
versus
no,
Wade.
no.
Let it be on the record,
No.
everybody.
Again-
7 men made a decision that
So
was
stupid.
terrible
7
for women.
empathetic men that don't have
Oh, I thought you said we shouldn't make decisions
No,
for women.
shouldn't.
7 men, everybody.
except obviously
repeal
the,
Roe
the
versus Wade.
Supreme Court who we have empowered to make
I
such
thought
What
we
is
should
the
trust
point of
women.
this?
You just scoffed at laws a second ago, but you seem to be a man of law typically. And so typically,
So what's the law that
abortions-
protects abortion? What was it passed by Congress?
Okay, once again, let me finish my
Name
point
the
here.
statute.
Let me finish my point here. You see,
It never.
unlike
happened.
you, those 7 men on the Supreme Court were able to have empathy and realize they don't know what a woman goes through to give birth and how it affects every part of their life going forward. And so they realized that the government, something you're typically in favor of, small, limited government, not infringing on people's liberties or lives,
Including
should
the
not
unborn.
infringe on. That's not what they decided. They decided and it's now
Incorrectly.
protected by the Constitution.
the
Also, I
clerk-
can just say 2A, then Second Amendment is incorrectly. We can do any regulation on
You guys
guns.
say that all the time. So the clerk for
And your
Justice
point is what?
Blackmun
It's a good
said that
point.
Roe versus Wade is intellectually suspect, the most intellectually suspect constitutional decision of the
said
modern
this?
era. The clerk for Justice Blackmun, who wrote the opinion for Roe versus Wade, the 7-2 decision that allowed 62 million
The
abortions.
dissenting opinion.
No, Justice Blackmun was the majority opinion. This is
Okay.
the clerk for Justice Blackmun, who said it was one of the most intellectually suspect constitutional decisions of the modern era. When did Congress ever
Great,
say
and
that
my
abortion was a
assistant
right?
one time said I was an asshole. That doesn't make it the law. I mean, what kind of
No, hold on a second. Do we make the law through Congress or through a decision of the courts?
Do we make law through Congress or a decision of the court?
Yes.
Congress makes law,
So-
and the courts decide
so
whether to uphold it or not.
When did Congress ever make a law on abortion?
Congress never made a law also outlawing abortion.
No, but
They
when
saw
did
a
they ever
case.
legalize it?
Both ways, Charlie. When did they ever make it not legal?
Actually, a lot of states had abortion bans
States,
up until.
not the federal government.
Well, so what does the 10th Amendment say, Ben?
What does the 10th Amendment
It says that anything not delegated to Congress will be left to the states and the people.
But this was decided.
Yeah, by a group of unelected 7 men who you say
Oh.
shouldn't make decisions.
Oh, okay.
Right, we have to
No, I never
trust
said that.
women
I never said
that
that.
overturn.
No, I never said they don't get to
states
decide things for
that
the
had
country.
their own independent abortion bans.
You're obviously twisting my words
hold on
very
a second.
strongly there because obviously
If
the Supreme Court
Congress-
can make decisions for the country.
If there was such a mandate, what's the law that allows abortion? Not Supreme Court decision. What's the law?
Charlie, the Supreme Court decides on court cases and they decide whether it is constitutional or not. And backed up by the Constitution that you and I both hold so dear,
Right, so
they
there's never been a law.
They codified
It's a decision.
into our it's a decision, that's correct. And you can't
Right.
you can't scoff at Supreme Court decisions
it's not a
and
law.
then say that then the Texas law is not a law.
So we're hopefully overturn Roe versus Wade through the Texas law. The point is that it was never
Good for
passed
you.
by Congress.
Great
It
luck
was
trying
never
to
voted
force
on.
women to have babies they don't want,
Hold
aren't
on.
ready for, and
let me
rape-
ask you a question.
Babies from rape
So-
and babies from abuse.
So
Great hill to die
Rape-
on.
rape
but then
aside,
make sure you don't
1%
rape
of-
aside. What a
1% of all.
sentence.
Let me ask
rape
you a question.
aside, women. I'm sorry you have to listen to this.
I-
Rape aside.
Statistically, it is less
1%.
than 1%.
So that's
Let me ask you a
millions. That's
question.
millions of
Let me
babies.
ask you a question. How do these other women get pregnant then?
Huh? You want me to explain sex
99%
to you?
No, I'm
I
asking
can
you.
explain sex to you. I know you're newly married.
So they made a
a man, when
consensual
a man and a
decision.
woman love each other.
They made a decision, and then they wanted to terminate and murder that child
Who made a
Funny.
decision?
because the 1 million people having abortions every single year. So why all of a sudden should
No,
we
they are
be
accidents
okay
oftentimes. They're
with,
not decisions.
with terminating human life
They're not decisions.
because they had a consensual relationship?
God, I hope for you
25%
that you don't
of
accidentally
all
impregnate your
abortions,
wife. That would be really hypocritical if you were put in this
25% of
situation.
all abortions in this country are
Uh-huh.
done out of economic convenience. Do you think that's okay?
Convenience?
Economic
Fuck you.
convenience is such a stupid, backwards, low IQ phrase for you to use. Economic convenience, what you actually mean is they
Oh, man.
cannot possibly afford the $1 million it will take to raise a child that you can afford because you were born into privilege.
So-
And they weren't, but you're so privileged, you also want to force them to have a baby and then vote against legislation.
What's the average
to help
social
them.
welfare benefits for somebody annually with a child?
What's the number of it?
What's the annual benefit?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
55,000 a year. What's
Uh-huh.
that times 18?
Times 18 years?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, roughly $500,000?
Right around $700,000.
Okay.
Almost just about what it costs to raise a child.
Uh-huh.
So there's plenty of social welfare benefits in place. So don't give me this idea
Wrong.
of
Plenty.
economic
Because
convenience.
Plenty.
that's assuming every dollar of that
Wrong,
goes to
wrong,
that
wrong.
child. That assumes every dollar of that
Here's
goes to
the
that
essence
child.
of it.
You
It goes
vote
through
against
size.
increasing this funding.
No,
You vote
not
against
true.
paid maternity leave. You push against paid maternity and paternity leave. You push against helping increasing prenatal care. You push against making sure
This is-
that there is more support for
Let me-
helping
let me-
raise these kids.
let me clarify
You
this.
only want to force people to have babies they don't want, and you don't actually care about it because you've proven time and time again here that you don't even know exactly what a baby is. You've said with your own words that it's not a life until it's born, never had a chance to exist. You only want to do it to get more followers and to be able to keep your followers on a hook, because the anti-choice movement never even used to be an issue conservatives cared about. Pre-Roe v. Wade, it was about segregating schools. That was the big issue that was the conservative movement hung their hat on.
You are all over the place, man.
Once I'm making great points all over the place, you're damn right. And so once the sentiment of the country shifted against that and they lost that hook on people playing to their fear and emotions, they had to shift to another emotional issue that played on misogyny and racism without being overtly misogynist and racist. So they instead said, let's control women's bodies and therefore help keep communities of color down, help keep women down, and help have men decide, like men like you, decide what's best for women, even though you can't be pregnant, never will be pregnant. And if you ever, your wife, hopefully, I hope for you, have the life gets pregnant, you raise a family, you'll have the means to take care of them. So it's very easy for you to sit on a high horse and say, you got to also have a baby. Well, so good for you. That's real nice since they don't have the money to do so.
Do you actually believe this?
What part? All these great points that you haven't been able to disprove any one of them?
Actually, we've gone through plenty of it. And just to recap, age privilege and size privilege. Ben believes just because you're older and bigger, you should be able to terminate human life. He's been unable to pinpoint when human life begins. No,
pre-human life, and I have pinpointed it at birth.
62 million abortions since Roe versus Wade. Human beings are distinct and whole.
Right.
And the science of embryology shows that human beings begin life at conception.
The
human
science
life,
of embryology.
And let's kill them anyway.
Unable to pinpoint human beings in the ladder of
the building block
animal
of
kingdom
life.
ladder.
It's the building block of
900 black babies are killed every single day. Ben is indifferent to that.
No, I want
there
black
are
people to decide for their own community
waiting families for every one abortion that happens every single year.
And there's children that are stuck in the adoptive system forever and
Texas,
can't get adopted.
70% of all abortions are minorities.
Adopted.
And it really goes down to this moral question. And the moral question is whether or not we believe human beings are worthy of protection.
No.
I believe
you all the time
that
say
all
you don't
human
believe
beings
they are.
Believe they are worthy of protection.
No, you vote all the time against protecting living human beings. You only vote and push people
on a second. Let's
to
talk
protect
about
the unborn.
So this is a slanderous lie.
No,
I want
not.
school choice because I care about all human beings. I want more police because I care about all human beings. I want strong borders because I care about human beings. It is a lie, and it is insulting to anyone who's pro-life to act as if we are only pro-baby. Everything that we advocate at this organization and over here is about the betterment and the flourishing of humanity, protection of your rights, strong education, the ability to read, the ability to go to school, not have to live in gang-infested neighborhoods.
You
this
do nothing to help stop
that.
It's the gangs.
Everything that I advocate is to advocate for the human being.
No, you
from
like
the
to
moment of
decide
conception to the last gasp and breath.
That is a lie.
This
you,
is a
you want to
drive-by
decide
shooting
what
tactic.
you think will help communities that you don't understand and aren't part of. You think there should be more police.
So the ability to read
you
is something that I'm saying.
Reading is great, but you constantly denigrate the Black Lives Matter movement and the opinions of the Black community that tell you what you are telling them and dictating as their white savior what they should want is not in fact the reality they live. You're telling them more police. They say we desperately need other ways. We need to shift funding into social workers, into healthcare, into help other community help. And you say, instead you tweet about how one of the founders of Black Lives Matter bought a house.
Patrisse Cullors has 4 homes.
You don't want
and
her
got
to
rich
be able
while
to.
her followers still can't educate their
She's not
children.
allowed to get rich. You are, but she's not.
Well, Patrisse Cullors goes on bashing capitalist enterprises, saying that she's a Marxist, gets rich while her followers continually have to send her kids to bad schools. So we only have about a minute remaining. So I just want to summarize
one last
this.
question.
So,
why are you friends with murderers?
What on earth are you talking about?
You said you have friends who've had abortions and you believe abortion is murder.
Let me
so why
clear.
are you friends with murderers?
I'm glad you asked that question.
Thank you.
Abortionists are the murderers. Women that had abortions are
You
victims.
said it's a genocide.
They have been
lied
to.
So women,
they have been captured by the abortion industry. They should be given
abortion
empathy.
industry? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
This is such a weird thing that when pro-life people do this, because I mean, just in terms of their own position, if you believe that abortion is murder, then yeah, you should believe that somebody who pays somebody to commit murder is a murderer. I mean, like that's
right.
The standard we would apply in any other context. I mean, if you right now like contracted a mob hit, to kill your child, right? Everybody would think that you were a murderer, like this that would be I mean, I remember in 2016, Donald Trump actually kind of got in trouble with social conservatives because, God bless him, you could tell that like he is new to this because like he started to pretend to be against abortion a few years ago. He
Right.
obviously doesn't care about that. And so somebody asked him, I remember during the campaign, so do you think there should be any punishment for the woman? And he said, yeah, I mean, I guess. And then all of these pro-life, evangelicals and right-wing Catholics started saying, no, we don't think that. It's like, okay, but why not? Shouldn't you think that if you take any of this seriously?
Yeah, really. Yep. Yeah, I mean, he had a good. Their talking points are like bulletproof within a certain, like their own logic is bulletproof, but when it's held up to the light of actual reality, that's not accurate. I thought Ben made a good point about the Black Lives Matter. That Charlie is making decisions for other communities, not knowing anything about them, when the community itself said we need less policing, and it's very paternalistic. But that goes along with everything he's doing here, which is I have the morality and of something I know nothing about and can never experience, and therefore I should still be able to do this.
I guess to be fair, I think that most Black respondents in polls actually don't say, should be less police. Like it's a, because I think that the messy thing is that I think there are a lot of people who think that, who might even want more police in some cases because they're worried about crime, but they also correctly believe that the police might act abusively towards them, so they're between a rock and a hard place. But
a lot of people are saying that they don't really want police to be the first responder to, say, like a domestic issue without a social worker and someone trained in de-escalation techniques. So, like deeply trained, like 4 years of graduate school or whatever it is. That defunding is a misnomer. It's misleading, et cetera. But
yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know if there's polling on that. I mean, whatever. I certainly support that, right?
I asked my one Black friend. She said, I polled her. She said, just kidding. I have several Black friends.
There we go. That was, you've asked all of them.
I called them all, yes. Okay, in an informal poll I conducted in my house.
I have four more calls to make. No, absolutely. I did want to circle back to two things. So according to, I'm looking at research, the website is the University of California, San Francisco. And anyway, this says that, he said earlier that most women who've had abortions regret it. And according to this, this is the findings published January 12th, 2020 in Social Science and Medicine, say that, landmark UC San Francisco study said that 95% of women who've had abortions said it was the right decision for them. So the thing that he's saying that most women who've had abortions think, actually like 5% or less of them think that. So that just seems like worth noting. That's, and then also,
I mean, you could regret it and also not think it was the right thing. Like, it's regrettable that you had to do that act, because my friend, now I do have one, my friend is an abortion provider, one of my closest friends, and she says that most of the people that she sees are people who have other children, and they don't really believe in abortion, but they feel like they have to do it. They do believe that life begins at conception, but they feel the high, again, the biggest thing we're not seeing here is a hierarchy of need, a hierarchy of value. They're not, Charlie's not, refuses to engage on that level around a hierarchy of need. And my friend also said that she has seen people come off the picket line, get an abortion, and then go back into the picket line.
I've heard that. Yeah, that they.
She's seen it. So, I mean, it's hearsay for you, but you'll have to trust me, and I could get the quote or whatever. But
No, I mean, I absolutely believe that. That, yeah, people who have crazy community pressures. That, yeah, I'm sure that's true. Speaking
well,
of
it's
which,
really the same religious communities that would frown upon an unmarried person being pregnant that also frown heavily on that same person getting an abortion.
Mhm. Yeah. So speaking of the religious angle, they said so like 10 minutes ago or something. I want to get through a big chunk of this because we still, they went way over time here. It was supposed to be an hour. It's like an hour and 20 minutes, so.
Yes, but we're having so much fun.
So I didn't want to stop when this happened, but there was a point where they started arguing about the Bible, and honestly, this is another thing where, like, even just the internal logic of their position, what they're saying doesn't make sense on its own terms. Like, for some reason, women who pay doctors to perform abortions shouldn't be punished at all, even though you think it's murder and the doctor should be in prison, like that. Like, it's the same kind of inconsistency, I think, here, because, like, Charlie, like, okay, whatever, I'm an atheist, but, like, let's just assume for the sake of argument that the Bible is the word of God, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, Charlie's big argument that the Bible is anti-abortion was that in Jeremiah, it's like God says, "I knew you before you were born." Okay, but if God is all-knowing, and the traditional Christian doctrine says that means that God knows everything that's going to happen before it happens, then God didn't just know you before you were born. God knew you before you were conceived. God knew you before, like,
exactly.
my grandfather was conceived. Like, that's a completely meaningless argument. And in fact, you can in the Torah, the punishment for attacking a pregnant woman and inducing a miscarriage is a fine. The punishment for killing somebody is death. So,
there you go.
It seems like, by implication at least, right? Like, this is about as close to definitive ruling as you can get on this. According to biblical morality, abortion is not murder.
Although that may have been just a misogynistic thing. Like, yeah, you can put your wife down the stairs when she's pregnant if you don't want the kid. That's fine. I'll just $50 give it to the church or whatever, the temple. That seems, yeah. Because the woman probably didn't have a choice in being pushed and forced into miscarriage.
Sure.
That still removes the choice angle that's so important to all of this.
I mean, sure.
But yes, I see your point. To your point, I see.
I'm not a big fan of biblical morality. I don't like all of the I don't like all of the slaughtering of the Canaanites and the Amalekites either. I think there are a lot of issues there, but, like,
all the ites are really a problem.
But let's just assume that that's wrong, and that actually this is the word of a morally perfect God. Blah blah blah. Like, assuming that, what Charlie's saying still doesn't really make sense.
Also, he was like, well, this is the word of, I forget who it was, Jeremiah or Jebediah or whoever. Sorry, I'm not a biblical scholar. And then he's like, no, it's the word of God. And I'm like, well, that's two different beings, is it not? Point that out.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a rough one. I hope yours is much more fun to watch, which I'm assuming it will be.
I mean, maybe it's fun or not fun in a different way, because the tones,
did you get all worked up?
Not even a little bit.
Yeah. See, that's what would have made this better.
Yeah. I think like there's nothing that happened in mine that's as entertaining as holding up the dolphin fetus picture or anything like that. Like nothing that. So in that sense, this is more fun. But I think that also, I don't think that Ben Gleib is necessarily doing himself any favors.
Yeah.
With anybody in the audience he could reach if that is his goal.
Right.
By like approaching it in this way. And also, by the way, they're both, I mean, this is like a really petty point. This has nothing to do with like, this is just my arbitrary prejudice, I guess. But like, I don't like the binder. I don't like the index card. Just like put all that away and talk.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
that just looks so bad to me, at least. But yeah, no, I mean, that was the one I did was an extremely calm conversation. I was pretty happy with it because, among other things,
Charlie was like, and I'll never invite you back again because I could not make you look like a fool or make you nervous. How dare you?
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to watch it.
Well, yeah, I mean, among other, well, I think that if nothing else, like because he has been making a big point of doing, like the Trump thing, the Rubio thing, the Ted Cruz thing, the Josh Hawley thing of saying like, oh, he's not, like a corporate Republican, he's a populist. And so then I think whatever you think of the arguments back and forth, I think, he spent an hour giving me Wall Street Journal editorial arguments against like raising the minimum wage and giving people health care and all this stuff. And so I think whatever else you think of any of that, I think that alone is kind of a win because it's like, that doesn't sound very populist, Charlie. And he made some weird concessions. Like I'll just preview one, right? We'll play it on Monday. But there was a point where he said that people shouldn't have income they didn't work for, that you shouldn't get benefits, whatever, that you should have to work for what you have. And I pointed out that that would, if he really believes that, he should be against inheritance and stock ownership.
And he was like, oh, no. Well, I take it all back.
Yeah, he kind of hedged on the inheritance one, but he actually said, like, I was actually shocked by this. It's like, well, maybe you can convince me on stock ownership. Like, really? Like, that would be
big. Yeah,
that would be big if Charlie Kirk came out against.
Yeah, it would be great if he was literally ideologically, ideologically opposed to his own inheritance. That'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, all right, let's get through some of what's left.
How much longer is this?
Care
they haven't solved it.
Prison. And it's
So
people like
women
you
not only
that
can't
are
decide
okay
for their own bodies
with the termination and destruction
of
children.
pre-babies / what you think are
The
dolphins.
62 million babies
Not
that
babies.
you are
Not
okay
babies, pre-babies.
with
You
seeing
don't care
being
once they're
slaughtered
babies. You don't
in
care
human
once
life.
they're babies.
Thank
But
you,
you
Ben,
yourself
for
said-
joining us.
We appreciate it. We can do a short overtime segment. And thank you so much. Everybody, debate night.
Solid
That was
debate. Solid debate.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Are you okay going back?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, keep it rolling. Okay, what were you saying, Ben?
I don't remember. You've said repeatedly that abortion is murder and genocide.
Correct.
So somebody who decides to have an abortion, then by your own definition, is a murderer, unless you not only think women shouldn't be able to, maybe aren't intelligent enough or independent enough to decide what to do with their own bodies, but also they're so naive, they're always convinced against their will to have an abortion. If not, then you're friends with murderers
They're not
by
the
your
ones doing the
definition.
procedure.
Or
abortionists are the ones doing the
No.
procedure.
They made the
you can
decision.
hire a
Lied-
hitman, can't
they
you?
are
If
lied
you hire a
to.
hitman, are you
They
guilty
are
of murder?
deceived. Many of them
If you
are
hire a
not
hitman,
showing
are you
ultrasounds.
It's a really good point.
Many of them are
Yeah,
not
just said
showing
that.
ultrasounds. They're not understood the actual
many of
details.
them
Oh,
are.
give me a
And many of
fucking
them
break.
are.
That's
If you
pissed me
hire a
off.
hitman, are
Sorry.
you guilty of murder?
I will remain with this position that women
Of
are
course
the
you will.
victims in the abortion
So
industry.
women are victims and
of
can't decide for
the entire
themselves.
industry that
Yes, we're
propagandizes
victims.
them, that try to reach out to them in a
Right.
very deceptive and terrible way.
Women can't be
Let-
reached out
let-
to and then make intelligent
Let
decisions,
me
right?
let me ask you a question.
That's your
do-
opinion.
do you believe
Women
that-
can't make intelligent decisions if they were reached out to and shown an ultrasound. They can't make a decision on their own.
Can they still
We're
make
idiots.
decisions in panic? And of course they
And,
can.
oh, it's only panicked when they have weeks to decide.
Do I believe that women are making a mistake by getting an abortion?
No,
Yes.
you're saying they're murderers.
I'm not saying them. I'm saying the abortionists are murderers.
No, but if you
Do I
hire
think
a
that-
hitman, you're guilty of murder.
Do
right?
I think that they allowed murder to occur? Yes, I do. of
They
course, yeah.
allowed murder to occur.
Yes.
They hired a murderer, in your opinion.
Yes.
So you're friends with murderers. Why? Why don't you call 911 and never talk to them again?
Well, do I have compassion for
For
many of these women
murderers?
because they regret
You
what
have
they
compassion
had.
for murderers.
I have
still hang out with
compassion
them.
for how that they were lied to. Many of them confide and they cry to
Yeah.
me and they
A lot of
pray for
murderers cry. So
reconciliation
your point is that they're
and they
not
pray
murderers.
for forgiveness.
So you agree with me?
And they are broken and they are hurt
So
and
you
they
agree
wish
with
with
me?
every ounce of their being that they could undo that decision. And my
That's because you
my
convinced them that they're
criticism-
murderers.
My criticism goes after the abortion industry, the doctors that misled them, the nurses that didn't show them the ultrasound.
You know they're
the
not
entire
misled always.
industry
So what about
that
when
does
they
not
do see the
show them
ultrasound?
that does again that entire industry.
What about when they do see the ultrasound?
I don't believe they were shown the entire
Never?
picture. If they really
Never?
knew that it was
You
a
think
human
never?
life. Again, I don't understand the point you're making here. My position
The point
is
is
very
that
clear.
you're putting
that
these
women
absolutes that are not
should
accurate.
be empathized with.
But you're
and
putting absolutes that are
and
not
have shown
accurate, Charlie.
compassion. So I'm not really understanding. Let me ask you a question about this,
But
which
can
is
you answer that point? You're putting
Mm.
absolutes that are not accurate. You're telling me never out of the 60
believe
million
that-
abortions, no woman has decided, knowing all the facts
course
and
they
seeing
have.
the ultrasounds. Why is my stomach showing this whole time? I know you showed me earlier to cover my
wait.
stomach.
But damn. So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Which is this?
I'm pregnant right now.
Which is-
Starting with this camera.
Which is so.
I'm gonna keep it, Charlie.
So human life. Can you give a specific week and trimester?
Oh,
Finish
again with
I
this.
already answered that 7 times.
No, you haven't.
Thank
keep
you.
on dodging it.
I
You say
specifically
somewhere
told
between
you
in the
for
third
me when they're
trimester.
viable, but that's not my decision to make.
But shouldn't the laws reflect
wait,
objective
Charlie.
morality?
Bring this point home for me
No.
because you're so important that you're encouraging millions of people to not have the right to decide for their own body. The one place you think government should be big and huge
Yes.
is deciding.
You mean enforcing
So
murder
again, you
laws?
just said it's murder.
Yeah, very
So again,
basic
you just
murder
said
laws.
it's murder.
Yes. I
So
do.
you think never in the history of the 60 million abortions in this country,
It's such a
women have
silly-
decided on their
it's a
own?
silly way
So
to
those
look
women
at
are
it.
all murderers?
So do some women make
Those women are
mistakes?
all
Of course they
murderers.
do.
He's got him finally.
Are those women all murderers?
Of course they're not. The abortion is-
Boom! I rest my case again.
The abortionists
Boom.
are the ones
How many times can you rest the case? A lot.
murder. The
What?
abortionists are the ones that are
We
doing
just
murder.
established
Let me
if
ask
you
you a
hire a
question.
hitman, then you are
Let me
guilty of
ask you a
murder.
question. When an abortionist
So
goes
you're talking
in,
around it because you don't want to
to-
say that. You don't want to say your friends are murderers, but that's what you're saying.
that's
That's
not
what
even
you're saying.
close to what I'm saying.
It's exactly what you're saying. You just acknowledged that, of course, sometimes women have all the full knowledge and are aware of what they're doing, and in those instances, it's murder. You just said it, and then a second later, you're like, but of course they're not murderers, because you don't want to say that, because you don't ever realize the actual effect on the mothers of what you are doing
Do
and
you know that-
saying.
you know that most
only
people that
care
have
about this
abortions-
talking
Do you
point.
think that most women that have abortions regret it?
No,
No.
that's not true.
Yes, it is.
I know a lot of women that've had abortions
That's
and
not
they don't
scientifically
regret it.
empirical.
Neither is your statement.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
No, it
Most
isn't.
women who've had abortions
Most
regret
women
it.
who have abortions
Did
regret
you know
it.
that
What do you
1
have
in
to say
4
about that?
women have had an abortion by age 45? Do you know that?
That is a sad statistic.
Yeah, it's sad.
That 1 in 4 women, unfortunately, are preyed on by the abortion industry.
They're all pregnant.
Oh my God. Yeah,
None
we're
of
out
them
there.
A million
just aren't
babies.
They're on the
ready.
bus
They're
trying to
never
get
gonna
you
be able
to have an
Let me
abortion.
close
Why are
kind of this
Wait,
with
I
this.
have
Abortion
one more
industry.
question for you. Okay?
Are any
Here's
choices?
a big question for you.
What choices are wrong in society? Would you get rid of murder laws?
No, I have a question for you.
Okay, so
I answer that very
so it's-
quickly for you. So I have a question for you real quick, okay? Why do you think late-term abortion is so bad?
well, I think late-term abortion is morally equivalent with abortion in the first trimester.
Oh, you don't think there's any difference?
Well, I do. I think that it gets worse because the baby can feel pain and it becomes
It's
even more
equivalent, but
developed.
it gets
Oh,
worse.
perfect. So you
Right.
prove my
I think
point
it's
yet
more
again.
grotesque.
It becomes even more
It
developed.
becomes more
That's
grotesque.
my point. Human
that the
life,
question?
human life
It
doesn't
becomes
do
more
that.
brutal.
You would never be more angry at a mother that killed a living baby at 3 years old than you would if they killed a baby at 1 year old. But with a fetus, you do. So you're qualifying the amount of life
No, I said
of a
that
fetus.
it's morally the same.
No,
I
you
said
didn't.
it's more
You
grotesque.
just
Let me-
said it's worse.
Ben, you know what's
because
more
it's still
grotesque?
developing.
You know what it's more grotesque? When the baby starts crying and an abortionist goes in and snaps its neck. Yes, it's more grotesque.
What?
Do you know what actually happens in
I've
an
been
abortion?
watching a lot of
What happens?
YouTube.
Tell me.
I know exactly what
What
happens.
happens?
There's several different
Babies
methods
don't
of how you
cry.
can do
No,
it.
tell me how an abortion happens, Ben, since you're such an expert.
You dilate the cervix and you go in there with a tube and you suction out the tiny half an inch large 0.025 of an ounce embryo, and it doesn't get a chance to become a human
What
being
does the baby
later,
do while
which
that's
you
happening?
just
The
agreed.
baby is fighting against it.
No,
The baby
it's
is
not.
clinging to the wall
not
of
in
the
the
mother.
first 2 trimesters. No, it is not.
And then the baby does what?
In the 3rd trimester, that might be true, but not in the first 2 trimesters.
Oh, sure it does.
No,
Go
it
look
does
at the
not.
videos of abortion and guess
No, it does
what
not.
percentage of abortions do the
Charlie.
abortionists have to break the neck of the baby?
Charlie, you just admitted
You ever see a video?
small percentage
Gross.
because that is the late abortions that
So
happen
wait.
in less than 1% of the chance.
If you had to break a neck of a
of the
baby,
cases.
so it is a baby, you agree?
No, I never said that.
If you have to break a neck, is it a baby?
No,
Then what is it?
dolphins have necks. They're your favorite animal.
So you believe that it's okay?
No, I didn't say it's okay. Abortions are sad. It's great.
Ben, I really don't think you understand how grotesque and graphic and intimate and quite honestly disgusting an abortion is. How unnatural it is to go into the development of a human being, break the neck, insert oneself, and the baby is trying with everything it can to cling onto the wall of the mother and to extract
That
that
is
by
not
force.
what happens. That is not what happens.
You got to watch more videos of
I've
abortions.
watched so many videos.
That's really creepy.
Oh,
If you've
that's
watched
what they're
so
doing?
many videos.
Watching
so
a lot
the
of
amount you
videos.
watched is,
One
is,
was
is
enough,
the
Ben.
Goldilocks
Yeah,
amount.
after one murder, one was enough. So
Yep.
many videos.
So let me ask you a question.
That's what axe
Charlie.
murderers do.
Here's a question that I would love to see on how we can move forward as a country on this, okay?
That will be a good way to close.
Great. I love it. So how to move forward as a country is obviously it's very contentious and we see these things differently, right?
That's been evidently clear.
Yes, absolutely. But my big question is when you are clearly someone who does not believe in government overreach and you want people to be successful on their own, deciding on their own what their lives are going to be. I mean, I have a quote from you right here. You think that people should be able to fend for themselves and make their own life and make their own decisions. But for some reason, that's why you're against a lot of expanding welfare programs, expanding Medicaid,
Yes.
expanding prenatal care. Yet, when it comes to a woman, half the population's own body, you don't agree with your own words.
You know the
So-
response before I say it. You know why? Because I believe that unborn child
But you
deserves
don't.
constitutional protection
But you,
and the right to flourish
you
like you
don't.
and I. And
because
who are we as human beings, as fully developed people, to say that that being right now, 6 weeks in the
because we're
womb,
fully developed.
does not have the same sort of shot at life that
Because
we
we're
have?
fully developed and we
And
are human beings
so-
who are alive.
So
You
you
just
believe that?
admitted that they're not fully alive. You admitted it several times.
No,
Your
no,
own
no.
words.
They're
They
small.
never had a chance to exist.
Hold on a second. No. You're being dishonest.
No, I'm not.
I'm saying that they are not as old and they're not as large, but they are equally a human being. They are a personhood. So this question of
No, they're
limited
not.
government, I believe in a small and strong government.
Uh-huh.
Small in what we do,
Yeah.
yet strong in the enforcement of
Going
very
into a woman's
universal
body is
principles.
small in what we do.
Let me be
That's a
very
small
clear.
thing
No, you're
to
actually
you?
the one that wants to go into the body and snap the neck of babies. I want to make sure that
You want
doesn't
to ruin the
happen.
lives of millions of women.
Let me be very
You
clear.
want to ruin the lives of living women.
No, I want
you only care about
unborn
unborn,
children
and you don't care
to
about
be able to
children.
continue. I care so much
Right.
about women. I want
Once they're
to. I want
born,
to
you don't
prevent
care.
them from the horror of abortion.
Once
I care
they're
so
born,
much.
you don't care.
I care so much
No, you
about
don't.
women
Oh
that I
my
want
God.
31 million more
You should
women
decide
that
for
never
them.
had the chance
You
to
should
be able to
decide
live.
for the living
To live the way you I did.
currently living women. You should decide for them.
31
that's the question I wanted to
million
get to.
women.
That's the question I wanted to get to.
31 million. Let me ask you a question. 31 million women never had a chance to see their 10th birthday.
Yeah.
Since Roe versus Wade. Does that bother you?
We just talked about
No.
that for an hour
Okay.
plus.
So okay, that's fine. So it's. But I thought you said you were pro women. Half of abortion
not women.
statistically.
They're not women. We went over this in great detail.
So they're just some amphibious being.
Why do you care more about the unborn than the born?
I care equally because they're
No, you
both
don't.
human beings. I
But
do.
You just said over and over again, you just affirmed again that you don't care about helping the structural systems that can help the born children.
I enter this argument is such a silly argument.
Because you don't have an answer for it. You
Let
call
me
it silly.
let me be very clear. You know
Please.
why? Because government dependence doesn't help. That's why it hurts.
Oy.
It keeps people down.
In your privileged opinion.
School choice
In your
would help the
privileged
black
opinion.
community, yet the teacher unions get in the way of it.
That's all they need. Is school
Defunding
choice.
the police raises crime and hurts minority opinions. This is the
In your-
argument
in your
that
white privileged
so
opinion.
many people make.
That's your
which
opinion,
is this,
Charlie.
which is that
Against the
somehow
facts.
I am anti-life and only pro-baby. Every position I hold is pro-life. Every single position.
No, because
I
you
believe
say-
in the dignity, the flourishing,
Wow.
the potential,
He really
the
thinks that's
prosperity
right.
of all human beings. And every public policy position
Without
that
any help.
I hold,
Without any help.
that's not true.
You're for.
I believe in
Oh,
a
what
safety
an
net,
asshole.
Force birth.
Sorry.
but not a hammock. I believe in lifting people up, not
Uh-huh.
crushing them down on dependence.
Uh-huh.
I believe we shouldn't throw rocks at the top of the building. We should fix the elevator. I believe in intergenerational stratification. I believe in getting more people to read, not less.
I believe in ladders, not steps.
I
Why don't we
believe
have
in
all
the
kinds of
current
analogies of it?
public education system in Baltimore, where in 5 schools they could not find a black child that could read at 5th grade. That's what I'm focused on fixing.
That school needs better teachers.
All right, there are less than 10 minutes left. I really wanted to do this through, but
the audience can't take it anymore.
did you understand that metaphor? I don't want to throw rocks at the building. I want to fix the elevator, because I think I know what half of that means, but that was very unclear to me.
I think he was just saying something like, I don't want to throw rocks at sort of capitalism. I want to help people get on the elevator and get to the top.
Yeah,
that was the thought I had.
Yeah, right. Like that's the thing. I understood the elevator part. I don't really understand the throwing rocks at the building, but anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter. But the elevator thing is also really dumb, because say you want to fix the elevator, so you want to make it easier for people to be upwardly mobile, but that doesn't help everybody who's not. I mean, like you could have
only so many people can get on that elevator.
Yeah, exactly. There's maximum capacity on the elevator,
right. and not everyone can even fit on the top floor. So
right, exactly. like you can't, and really, like, we couldn't even have a society where most people are on the top floor, because then there would be nobody, growing the food and harvesting it and driving trucks to take it, to grocery stores and all of that stuff, and we'd all starve to death if somehow magically every single person could get a job as a middle class professional. That society would last for like 3 days.
Does Charlie Kirk debate women?
That's a good question.
Because to me, this isn't even really a debate. It's a cockfight. He's showing off. It's just the disingenuous nature of this is just, it's fine at the beginning, but by the end, when they're just going over the same points so that his white crisp shirt can be, he's just basically saying, look at me, I'm great. My points are infallible in my own thinking. It's like, this reminds me of Hannity and Combs. Remember the show Hannity and Combs with Sean Hannity? And Sean Hannity's like the buttoned up, all-American sports guy. And Alan Combs, God rest his soul, kind of is the liberal, and he looks a little less like the all-American football pro. And he's, just a little more goofy, and he was a comedian, so he's also funny, and it comes off as like, I'm serious and I am the moral right versus this, other way of being. And it just, I don't know, it just seems like it contributes to, like, the debate itself contributes to a negative society. It just contributes to a negative atmosphere.
Yeah. I did. So yeah, actually that is an interesting question, because I just read through, at least in my head, all the Charlie Kirk debates I've seen, and they have all been with guys, but maybe there are exceptions I don't know about. But also, I had no idea Alan Combs died. I just looked that up after you said it.
He died. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a few years ago. Well, I used to sit in it for his show and host a show for him when he was either out of town, or at the end he got cancer. In fact, I remember going in the Fox building, sitting there and being like, oh God, I don't know how anyone does this job and doesn't get cancer, because it was just like tons of negative energy and fighting and chaos and just awfulness. Much like this debate. No. Then he did get cancer, and he died. He was really a wonderful person. Just really a wonderful person. So,
well, I did watch at one point in my life a decent amount of Hannity and Combs, which is at least as sick as having watched a great many abortion videos. But
thanks.
But yeah, he had I think he had 2% of the speaking time on that show, as far as I can remember.
I have to say, the abortion videos and the snapping of the necks and the babies clinging to the side of the mother, that is a very compelling, moving argument. It's so visceral, and it really speaks to a whole different part of the person than the other sort of rational, it's a life and da 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 da. And I could see how, I mean, it's such we don't have anything to counter that.
Yeah, I mean, it is also weird though, because he said when Ben said, no, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's how it goes in first and second trimester abortions. Charlie's response was, well, you should watch some abortion videos. And then he said like a minute later that he himself has only ever watched one.
Right.
So it's like, okay,
right.
So your reason for thinking that this is what a first trimester abortion is like, that there's clinging and, and all this stuff, like your reason for thinking that is you watched one video once, presumably of a very late term abortion.
There's videos of these things?
I
guess I'm not watching I'm not in the right algorithm hole in YouTube.
Well, I will freely admit to having watched 0 videos of abortion, but apparently Charlie watched one and Ben watched many videos. So they must be out there. But yeah, I think totally. I could see how all of that is really is really emotionally effective. I mean, I think the closest thing is probably talking about medical risks of pregnancy, or talking about people, how like horrible it is to like bleed to death as a result of back alley abortion, or like that's I guess about the closest you could do on the.
And also, that's a good point that you make. Like, they're not going to stop the abortions; it's just going to make them dangerous. The same exact amount of abortion. I mean, that no one mentioned that this idea that illegality won't stop the actual practice. If you want to stop the actual practice, you need X, Y, Z.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that you need is what you said earlier to
social safety net.
Yeah, exactly. Like that. Like the more you, really like do what there are European countries that do, and just directly give parents money, to help them, the early years of raising a child. Then
and this was pissing me off too, Ben, because Charlie was like, you don't want to create dependence on a system. I'm like, am I not doing a job as parenting a child? So I'm not doing nothing and just totally dependent. I'm actually doing something by parenting this child. That's not a dependence. It's a social good. So it's just, just the rank disregard of like what females bring to this equation and how females rank in this equation, I think was just, I wouldn't say stunning, but just because it's what I would expect, but just so clearly on display, it's grotesque.
Yeah, no, I think that, when he says, I don't want, I'm okay with the social safety net, but I don't want a hammock. Like it's a cute line, I guess, but I really want to know what he would consider to be a hammock. Like, is financial support for parents a hammock? Is
dental care and vision dental for and what's the other one they want to get? Hearing, vision, and dental for the elderly. That's a hammock.
Yeah.
You're not getting that.
No, exactly. like is healthcare being paid for? Is that a hammock?
It's a total hammock.
I'm pretty sure, free community college, by reports, yesterday just got axed, from the reconciliation bill, and which, I'm assuming that he doesn't support that, and really, even if we're going to go with the elevator thing, which again, for all the reasons we talked about earlier, I think is dumb, because you can't have, just structurally, it's not possible to have a society where the majority, there's an economic hierarchy and the majority of the population is on the upper levels. Like most jobs in any economy, are going to be relatively quote unquote unskilled, but also, okay, let's pretend for the sake of argument that's not true, that we don't need to worry about making life better for people in the first floor of the basement, wherever they are in this metaphor, that like we only need to worry about getting them a better elevator. I don't know. I mean, I think that I think that eliminated tuition and for colleges, I mean, that sounds like it would make the elevator better.
Right? You said it. Also, we could just because something is unskilled, I think was the word you used, or unskilled.
Yeah, unskilled, right?
Labor, there's much unskilled labor has a danger value to it. And so that could be, maybe you could move up to floor 5. Maybe pay scales could reflect,
Yeah, you couldn't have you couldn't have everybody on the elevator, but you could just raise the entire floor, that you could. Right.
Or bring the top down so that everybody lives on the first floor. Make the building, instead of 700 stories, put a cap so that everyone lives on the first 5 at least. Because then the person on the 5th floor, it's a 5th floor. They definitely want the first floor to be nice and tidy because they don't want the rats coming up the 5, right? Bring people to take the metaphor all the way to the Lower East Side, where I used to live.
Absolutely, but I also think the point about danger is a great one, because if in a society where people weren't sort of driven by the fact that the alternative is just destitution to take these jobs. I mean, you would think about the last year during the pre-vaccine part of the pandemic, in a society where people didn't have that kind of whip of fear of destitution to force them to take those jobs, you would have had to pay quote unquote so-called essential workers. You would have had to pay them way more than you would have had to pay people like frankly me, who could do our jobs from a computer, and stay safe, because you'd have to pay people way more to get people to entice them to take that danger. The fact that we don't have to do that really shows how little choice people actually have in practice.
Well said. Well said. Very well said.
Let's see if we can power through the last 9 minutes.
Power through. Okay, we can do it.
Yeah. All right.
I agree. That's why bad teachers should be fired and good teachers should be paid more, and the teacher union should be crushed. This argument from the pro-abortion lobby that we're somehow only pro-birth and you're on your own is disgusting, and it's ridiculous. This is why
you just affirmed it.
No.
You have a few things that are
Medicaid, social welfare. Those keep people down. That does not lift them up.
In your privileged opinion, when you never had to deal with changing your social status. Let me just ask you a question. But how do you know if you never had to do that? Well, it's so arrogant for people who never had to do it.
Let me ask you a question.
To know how easy it is to get to a different social status.
Let me ask you a question.
You're making that up.
So just universal, is reading a good thing? Being able to read?
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
Being able to do math?
Even though with screens these days, it's not super necessary.
How about low crime areas?
Yeah, that's good. And you don't want to help.
I don't need to grow up in the hood to know those things are good.
You don't want to help those communities.
I want to help them so much. I want to get them off government dependency and get them into economic flourishing.
So they should follow your prescription.
It's not mine. This is.
It is.
So how do you stay out of poverty in America? What are the 3 things you have to do to stay out of poverty?
Oh my God, I hate this.
You got to get out of poverty.
Graduate high school, get a job, any job, and get married before you have kids.
All right, we'll go back to that.
That's the Brookings Institution, which is a liberal institution. Those are
and you don't want to help people do those things.
Let's go through it. Okay, get married before you have kids. I'm a huge advocate of that. I want to fix the high schools in our country, and I want to be able to have jobs abundant in inner city schools. Everything I stand for is for the betterment of the individual.
How do you want to get those jobs going?
Enterprise zones, opportunity zones, lowering crime. Crime is one of the #1 reasons why businesses will not move into low-income areas. Every position I have is a pro-life position, going from protecting the unborn child in the womb all the way to making sure you have safe streets, schools where children can read, fathers in the home, making sure people stay loyally married to their spouse, being able to make sure communities are thriving. A pro-life agenda is through the entire public policy portfolio of the conservative world view. The left-wing worldview is very simple. We want to abort you in the womb,
No,
keep you
nobody
down,
wants to abort you.
have forced eugenics, not be able to read and enter
Ridiculous.
schools, close your
Yeah.
We
businesses,
want you to not read.
be able to
That's
gang
your
violence.
opinion. We want you to not read.
It seems as if the Democrat Party and the left is perfectly okay with the fact that literacy rates have gone down in inner cities, that teacher unions are making more money than ever before. They oppose charter schools and oppose private schools. This idea that somehow I don't care about the dignity of individuals as pro-life people is disgusting.
You care
it's
about their
reprehensible.
dignity. You just don't want to help them.
I want to help them through better schools, safer streets, more jobs, and fathers back
But
in the
not
home.
Talking
in the ways
points.
Those
that they
things
tell you they
are
need help.
objectively, you know who does?
But not in the ways they
What
tell
about
you they need
Senator
help.
Tim Scott? What about Thomas Sowell? What about black leaders that want to talk about flourishing, not victimology? What about black leaders that want to talk about rebuilding these communities?
We need all of that.
These things are objectively good. You know
I have
deep
two last
down
questions
that
for
if people get a job, they graduate high school, they can read, they could do math, and that they don't commit crimes. You know those things are
No,
objectively
I know
good.
for a fact math
regardless
does jack shit. I
black,
know for a fact
regardless
math
of
does nothing.
regardless if they're black,
I don't
rather
use math.
Hispanic,
It's a waste of math.
regardless of what they are.
Let's be honest.
This
You don't need math.
idea
You got
that
calculator on your
somehow
phones right there.
because of the skin color that I have, that I can't say that some things are better than others, it's ridiculous.
That's not what I'm
Not
saying.
committing crimes, getting a job, graduating high school, getting married before you have kids are moral goods that everyone should advocate for, and that's what conservatives
Saying
believe.
not committing
This
crimes and
guy
getting jobs from
makes
your
me wanna
position of
kill
white
someone.
privilege is something that is woefully ignorant to say without a true understanding of that experience. But I think it's great that you do have a lot of those positions that would help. And I think it would be nice if you could up your empathy a little bit to help in some of these other ways. But I have two last questions for you, if I could, okay? One, here's a big one I have for you. Is since I was trying to say the point and I got distracted because this is very intense. But if we agree, we see this all very differently, right? But currently the law of the land is that a woman does have the right to choose. At least
It's not the law of the
federally.
land.
Federally, that is what
It's the
law.
interpretation.
Okay.
It was never passed by
Oh,
Congress.
for Christ's sake!
Why don't you, if you truly care about people so much, and you claim, even though you won't talk about the woman, you claim you care about the woman, the mother, as well as the unborn child, then why don't you focus instead on the education of these people? Why don't you focus instead on making sure they have the care they need to be able to bring more children into the world, which would make you happy and would reduce abortions, and not do it through draconian laws that punish them and would make it illegal if they're raped or if they have an ectopic pregnancy or anything like that?
How much do you know about my views on actual children in development?
I've studied as much as I could find, but I don't know that much about it.
I believe in paying people to have children. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Well, you should have a note card.
But what's your answer to that question? Why do you try to do it through laws and not
Hold
through
on a
just
second.
education
Let's go through this.
and help?
I do believe in education and help. I believe that for every child you get, you should get cash from the federal government. Did you know that?
That's great. How much cash you want them to have?
$10,000, $12,000 a year. I think we need to increase the birth rate
Great.
in the country. You know
That
that?
part's
That's
good.
great. I do know.
That's
you think
great.
Is that
It's
also
a,
life position?
why do we have to
There's
stop
overpopulation
abortion?
problems
No, we
because
don't.
of
Oh
problem
my
and
goodness.
death.
We have an
But, okay.
overpopulation problem.
We do. But let me ask you this
Well,
last
we
thing.
do.
Okay.
That's true.
Here's
True.
what I don't understand. Conservatives claim to be all about.
Well, we have a consumption problem.
and
Anyway,
claim that liberals are
It depends what the
are
definition of freedom
about this
is, but yes.
nanny state and about not being free.
There's some nuance and flex in those joints, but sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what I don't understand. You think that when you're trying to protect people from a pandemic, you can infringe on someone's freedom to ask them to wear a mask because it might not spit deadly virus into their face. That's too much of an impingement on freedom for you. But you're okay with rolling back reproductive freedom. You're okay with rolling back voting access in this country. You're okay with broadly undermining our democracy by backing an insurrection literally to overthrow the election of our nation that you supported. I mean, Turning Point's literally funded Trump's Jan 6 rally.
So Ben, I have a question.
That led to an insurrection attempt on our government and the death of many people, including police officers that you claim to love and care for. How do you reconcile being anti-freedom on all of those things and claiming you are pro-freedom?
So Ben, I have a question. Which one of us was
anti-democracy.
Ben, I have a question. Which one of us was arrested at the Capitol before?
I was.
So you're an insurrectionist.
Oh no, I didn't break
Wrong.
into the building and kill people.
Wait, were you arrested?
Yeah,
Where was I on January 6th?
You were doing a podcast
From-
in which
you were
said,
fomenting-
I'm getting 500 emails a minute of people saying we want civil war and ginning that up.
You were
And
arrested
also,
at the Capitol.
Not that day.
And
not
I
that
was in
day.
Phoenix, Arizona.
And you also sent busloads of people to the Capitol on Jan 6.
How do you justify
You
being an
sent
insurrectionist?
people to the Capitol on Jan 6
So
for the insurrection.
you really should get better research.
Are you not?
Because
hold on.
our students
That's
never
just
got
what I
near
read.
the Capitol.
None of them.
None of them.
No, they were actually at the
None.
wall.
It doesn't fucking matter.
And none of
2
them
miles
walked.
away.
None of them walked
But
into the
you,
Capitol.
as an insurrectionist who were arrested at the Capitol,
Zero. No.
because you are
He's
a
not an
threat to
insurrectionist.
I
democracy.
peacefully protested and told the Capitol Police I would be protesting. They knew.
So you're a
it was
domestic
respectful and it was
terrorist.
civil disobedience.
I did not know that you were a
So
domestic terrorist.
disingenuous.
So you do take blame for the insurrection that
I
happened on Jan
take
6th?
no blame. That's slanderous and wrong.
Why do you take no blame for it? You
What were
sent
we
buses
talking
of
about?
people there.
Slanderous.
Nowhere near the Capitol. You're the
But that
insurrectionist.
day that you ginned
That
up,
is libelous
that-
and slanderous,
that day-
and you know it.
that day that you
So
ginned-
what's the final question you
that's
have
it.
here?
That day that you ginned up.
I
led to
ginned up
death.
nothing.
That
That's
day
a
that you
disgusting
ginned up-
lie. You're the only one that got arrested. At the
You
Capitol.
said you were sending patriots to fight.
I
for
said
Trump.
nothing like that. That
Yes,
is
you did.
you've
said
never
you
never
sent
said fight.
patriots to fight.
Metaphorically.
And you said they want a
Listen,
civil war.
This is so
You
typical of the
encouraged
left.
a civil war.
Where you come in here, where you yourself have been arrested at the Capitol,
Peaceful,
and you try to say
disobedient
that I am
protesters.
something
That's
I'm not.
different.
You are a domestic terrorist,
Wait,
and
okay.
a failed presidential
Oh my
candidate
God.
you've never heard of.
So you're
and
not-
you have the balls to come in here and try to call me that.
So
No,
you're not.
You're
So you're
done.
not responsible for it.
Let me
I'm
come.
just asking
let
that.
me-
That's my last question.
Not even
You're
close.
not responsible
but
for
you
what happened on
have
Jan
actually
6th?
been arrested on the Capitol.
Okay,
Let me
fair.
finish and say this.
Wait,
This right here
sorry.
is
It's
exactly why
respectable
we're not going to
to be
come together
arrested.
as a nation
No,
or this.
no.
You dishonestly come in here with poorly researched talking points where I was
Perfectly
2,000
researched.
miles away
You
in
can't
Phoenix, Arizona
incite
that
a
day.
mob from a distance.
Let me be very clear. You're the one that's actually been arrested before.
Yeah.
I have not. Nor
I like to see how he got to him.
And let me
He
just-
got
let
him.
me just finish
Got
by
to
saying
him.
You're done. Let me
No,
finish by saying
Here's like
this is
I
exactly why
promise here's my
no
last
one
sentence.
trusts half the country.
I promise
Because
here's
they
my last
dishonestly
sentence.
lie
Charlie,
about this and they think they got one.
It's
when
true,
they
that's
themselves
why.
are actually the domestic terrorists and the people that have attacked our
God.
democracy. He's been arrested. I haven't. Thank you, Ben, so much for a great debate. Thank you guys so
I
much.
promise here's my last sentence.
Thank you.
Hold on.
We're done.
Last
Thank you.
sentence. If you're not responsible for what happened
Thank you.
on Jan 6,
Thank
is
you.
that because unintended consequences happened that you
Thank you.
didn't anticipate?
I hope that
Kind of
getting
like
pregnant?
mothers that have an unintended pregnancy, they didn't anticipate. So if you want to be cut some slack for Jan 6, maybe you could cut women some slack
Thank you.
who unintentionally get pregnant. Does
Thank
that
you.
sound like a deal?
You're the domestic terrorist.
I was arrested for peaceful protesting, my friend.
Thank you. Domestic terrorist.
You ginned up an insurrection on our country. So well done.
Isn't that? Oh, I can't even. Okay, so on our show today, on the show earlier today, we were talking with Jocelyn, who is Jocelyn McCurdy-Keats. She's a part of ActV's team, and she was covering the people who got arrested just yesterday for protesting for voting rights. And I said, one of the questions I had for her was, how important is it that people get arrested during these peaceful protests? And she said that it is actually, an act of great vulnerability. And it's many of the people believe that it is a spiritual act to really put their whole self, their whole body, their whole future, because their whole everything on the line for something that is morally good, and without killing a police officer. It's just like you just sit there and you peacefully protest. So just to hear the way Charlie just contextualized Ben's arrest for whatever it was it's just very stomach turning and a great way to end the night. I'm going to have to take a Tums, Ben. But it also is very exciting to see how this whole time you kind of wanted him to get ruffled. And he did at the end. He really got pissed off, which I thought was, kind of satisfying.
Yeah, so my understanding from what I saw Ben say on the Majority Report is that that thing at the end after Charlie says we're done, is the part that was cut from.
Of course. Oh,
yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, look, I think that it's one thing. I mean, I think that to be fair.
Don't be fair. There's no reason. Fuck that. Are you kidding? Well, that's our problem on the left. We're like, we're going to be fair, and they're going to run us over with a bulldozer. They don't care about fair. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ben. It is good to be fair. That is why we are, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, to be fair, I think that the cop who died, Brian Sicknick, that it seems like the stress, like the initial report was that like he was like beaten up and that he died of like complications. I think that the coroner eventually said no, he had a heart attack. Now I'm sure the stress of dealing with a riot contributed to the heart attack, but I think that but like
I think that's still
which would have been a better, like whatever. It does, like the thing is,
it wasn't the cop. That's like the talking point that people used to throw in the face of like the cop loving whatever. Like, oh, right. It wasn't the cop that really made that. It was the insurrection part, the overthrow the government part that was really the main problem.
I mean, from my perspective, like the big problem with that is that people were acting on the basis of a lie. That they'd been told that Trump really won, and that were defending democracy, and actually what they were doing was the opposite. I mean, I don't think it was. I don't think there's any scenario which it would have succeeded. I think that it's but like there was definitely an element of people there who were like, what 3%ers or whatever percent it is. I always forget the percent, but
what percenter is that? 5? Yeah,
whatever percenters.
Percenter boys.
The percenter boys and the Proud Boys, and then there are contingents of these people who are like lunatics who in their minds like really are going to overthrow the government. I always think of the character on King of the Hill who's like, that flag has fringes on it. So it's a native flag. I don't recognize its authority. And then there are people who are you could be much more sympathetic to, who were just like ordinary people who were told this thing that was not true, that that Trump really won the election. And so I think as far as Charlie's involvement in that, I think the big the $64,000 question is, does he know that what he was saying, that Trump really won the election, does he know that that's not true?
Yeah, he does. He's Trump's press person. They freaking, I would put money, if I was a betting lady, on Trump's PR media person knew that this was happening before it was going to happen. And they probably, that whole thing about I won the election and it's a big lie, that was a PR blitz. So he must have been involved as one of Trump's media people to, and I don't mean just his own media empire. He literally worked for the Trump campaign. So
yeah, so because Turning Points was running Students for Trump, right? That was the connection. Yeah, so I think it's very possible.
I don't know. His wiki page said he literally was working for Trump as a media coordinator or media something and PR.
I mean, I certainly wouldn't put it past the Trump organization to hire that guy, but like
they'll take anyone over there.
I mean, you remember Scaramucci?
I do.
The standards are pretty low.
They're pretty low.
So I think if he does know that that's not true, that reflects pretty badly on him in one way. If he's gullible enough that he does think it was true, that reflects pretty badly on him in a different way.
No, he's a player, man. He knows what's up. He knows. There's no way. I mean, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll never know, apparently, unless we get some.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that the big thing that like resisting the temptation to pause before the ending, like, okay, come on, it's like 10:45, whatever it was at that point. Like we gotta finish this up, But the place I really wanted to pause wasn't the Jan 6 stuff. It was the earlier when he was talking. He didn't use the phrase, but what he's talking about is what like right-wing think tanks call the success sequence, which is the idea that if you that you'll get out of poverty if you follow this sequence of steps. That's you graduate from high school and you don't have kids until you're married and you get a full-time job, and above and beyond everything else that's wrong. I mean, what the germ of truth is that basically, well, actually, I'll just say Matt Brunig wrote a bunch of good stuff about this, the People's Policy Project. He's written a lot about this, and basically, like, if you actually look at the numbers they're basing all this on, what like 90%, most of it is just window dressing. Like 90% of the statistical difference between people who follow the success sequence and people who don't is that they have jobs. And so what what you're really just saying is you're less poor if you have a job than if you don't have a job, which, like, yeah, no shit. Like, that's not, you know.
We're good on that. We're good on that.
I think literally everybody is clear on that. And by the way, that's why some of us would like, you know, federal jobs programs, so everybody could get a job.
Right. I don't know. They love to take everything just completely out of context and really just at a granular level and not discuss. I mean, on my show earlier today, after you came on, I had a guest talking about the prescription drug plan and the Build Back Better, and he drew the lines to how big pharma is just, you know, they're grafting and money laundering your tax dollars by keeping the prices so artificially inflated, et cetera, et cetera. This idea of like, oh, we can't have a federal tech job program, that would cost money. Well, how about we move the money from graft over to something that would be good for the people? You know, creating undue dependence is what we've done to corporations. Why don't they care now that there's corporate personhood? Why don't they care, these folks like Charlie, to you know where I'm going with this? Not create the dependence on the government of corporations to artificially inflate and have no regulation on their, ability to pilfer the American people.
Well, it's also it's such a weird thing. Like, you talk about creating dependence, because it's like, okay, so like Charlie, as he said in this debate, actually, right? He loves the police. He's all for that. So it's like, okay, wait a second. Is it bad that we're dependent on police instead of just hiring private security? Clearly you don't think that because you, Charlie Kirk, right, think that policing is a function that government should have, that people have a right to security. So, like, why is it dependence if it's healthcare?
Also, why is dependence bad? The fetus is dependent on the mother. They don't want to, while it's in there just gestating, they don't want to even consider that there is a dependence there. They don't want to consider that there is a dependence on that particular mother or some other mother once the fetus gets out. They think they're still mad at their moms for not letting them do exactly what the fuck they wanted. This is my take on most libertarians. They're just mad at their moms for having boundaries and rules, and they don't want to have any dependence. They haven't cleared the hurdle of differentiation that happens at 5 years old or around there, and then happens again when you're a teenager, so that you can be interdependent with people, which is what is healthy in a society. Well, interdependent has dependence in it. They don't want any of that. They just think they're a one-man island.
Yeah, everybody is dependent on other people. Like humans.
They hate it. They can't deal with it.
Yeah,
something's wrong with them.
Humans can't exist without other humans. Like we're always dependent on other people. Like to some extent, really, in almost any society, certainly in like a modern, industrialized society where we have like a really complicated division of labor, and most of us don't grow our own food, and all that. Like, yeah, we're always dependent on other people, but the dependence thing always seems backwards, because sure, it's always going to be that other people are doing things that help sustain you. There's no escape from that. But even so, if the reason dependence is bad is because the person you're dependent on has something over on you, they have power over you or something, if that's the idea in your head, then okay, so should you be dependent on a private employer to meet your needs, because they really do have power over you, much more so than if something is legally guaranteed as just a right that you get for being part of society. The administrators of the NHS in Britain have very little power over anybody, because they're not empowered to say, actually, you don't get healthcare anymore, because everybody gets it. Whereas your boss literally, can just fire you. They that's actually, people like Charlie Kirk, this came up with me, right? Love to talk up private charity as better than government. But literally, if you're dependent on private charity, you're more the people who are giving you the charity can cut it off anytime they feel like it. Whereas if you have government social services and if it's not means tested, if everybody gets it, then, if you have a legal right to it, that's probably about as free as you could be from like power that people have over you because you're relying on them for something that could cut off anytime they feel like it.
Hey, you said it. That's exactly right. I mean, God, this streak of must be independent is just like, okay, go be independent. You'll die on an island by yourself. Go ahead. We're tired. We don't want that. We want dependence. We want a shared prosperity. It's just there was just so many false arguments in there. I'm so glad we're having this time to chat with each other and bring my mind back to sanity and goodness. Just the two of us without even the image of Charlie on the screen with us. I appreciate that. Next time I'm bringing that, what did we talk about? Chris.
The glass of scotch that you just.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yes. Oh man. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it so much.
This is a lot of fun.
It's really fun.
If
I've offended anyone, you can follow me on Twitter and yell at me at Julianna Forlano. That's where I am. I work for a place called Act TV. That is not my, it's not my place, but you can follow me over there. That's where I host the show. But if you want all things Julianna, like next time I'll be on Ben's show or wherever else I'm going to be, or my unusual quips or the usual ones, that's where to find me on Twitter.
All right. Outstanding. That link is also in the description for this video. So follow Julianna, and we are going to be back on Monday with a much more quiet debate with Charlie Kirk.
I cannot wait to see that. I am very excited about this.
So
it's going to be great.
So that airs here on Monday. Thank you again, Julianna.
You just did this to make your debate look better, right? You're like, this is a train wreck, and look at me. Oh man, good marketing.
I actually paid off Ben Gleib to go to Phoenix and wave around dolphin fetus pictures in front of Charlie
good
Kirk.
man.
It's played the long game, but all right. Thank you so much, Julianna.
Thanks so much, Ben. Have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.